like the mid 2010s.
Yes, milady.
So like 2015, 16, 17, whatever. He was the male feminist. If you want to know about male feminism, you went to Steve Shard.
Wow, this is ancient YouTube lore.
It is, yeah. Now, I'm not trying to be mean to Steve. I'm not trying to bully Steve. Steve actually still makes videos. He mostly focuses on like Star Trek stuff. Like full Star Trek nerd stuff.
Didn't he make a full-length movie?
Yeah, that was ages ago. That was really funny.
That he scripted himself,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
his wife at the time was in it, and she was like a dwarf.
Yeah, that's right. She was a dwarf. So Steve is probably most famous, right, for the conversation he had with his wife at the time. And this is like lost media. I cannot find this. But he had a conversation where his wife told him that he was a...
Oh, this is the Angel versus Buffy thing.
Yeah, he was a sexist because he liked Angel better than Buffy. And you can see, like, as the conversation goes on, this is all I find these still shots, but as the conversation goes on, you can just see him lose his soul. Junior! I know. If anyone knows where that clip is, please find it, because it should not be lost. It needs to be rediscovered. So anyway, just on the introduction to Steve Shard, there's a guy on Twitter I follow called CCLD, right? And he's known for a segment he does called Shard's Watch. Or Steve Shard's Watch. He hasn't done one for a while, actually. I wish he'd keep posting it. But I made a compilation of all the best Steve Shard's watches.
Oh no.
He's like a big fat racist. I said, what's it like to be a black person? We've never had that conversation. You're a white guy, you don't really get it. They're too gay. You Democrats. That's why you're not winning elections on the national level. You're too fucking gay to support white people. So he's racist. I only need 2 words to describe that. Nazi. What did you use substitute?
If you masturbate to thoughts of a zombie, does that make you feel it?
I like Superman who's standing directly in front of the scientist now. So close that it's mostly flaccid, but still obviously very large. The penis inside is 100% cotton. Penis? Penis. Penis? Penis! You can sperm. Hi, kids! Thanks for watching me. It makes me feel cool.
So that's Steve Shard's watch. I wish he'd produce more because they're funny. He must go through like hours and hours of videos and streams. He's got the patience, autism of a fucking saint. But anyway, Steve Shard has made a triumphant return to task all to stop saying retard.
Can you stop saying the R word?
So let's have a look.
Hey, I have a request. Can we stop saying the R word?
No! No, we can't, Steve.
The derogatory word that refers to people with intellectual disabilities. I'm not going to say it. My purpose really is to help people to stop saying it, not to give myself an excuse to say it a bunch of times in this video. You know the word I'm talking about.
Yeah, retard. No, Steve, see, when we call people retards, we're not like actually... How do I describe this? We're not insulting retards. We're calling people retards because they're acting retarded. It's like fag.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
gay, yeah.
It's like the South Park thing, you know, we're not calling you a homosexual, we're calling you a fag.
Alright, look, you're driving in your car, okay? And you're waiting to make a left at a traffic signal. The light turns yellow, should be your turn to go, but the traffic coming at you just keeps coming. And even when the light turns red, a guy in a BMW runs the red light so you can't make your left turn. What goes through your mind? Right! But you're not thinking, oh, he's a homosexual.
And I thought the lefties were all for the evolution of words. As in now, a woman is a man.
Yeah, that's right. Well, it depends on what the fucking word is. You know what I mean? If it's some weird, kooky, like degen shit, then they're all for it. If it's like an insult or hurt feelings,
To clarify, I am specifically talking to my fellow progressives. People on the right aren't going to stop saying it because I asked them to. In fact, a bunch of them are probably leaving one-word comments on this video right now.
Yes, they are, probably. Now, I'm not encouraging people to do that. I don't think Steve should get bullied. I don't think Steve's comment section should have anything done to it. Besides, you won't get one through. He's known for having the biggest block list in history on Twitter, on YouTube, on everything. He probably blocks motherfuckers on Blue Sky for being too right-wing. You know what I mean?
Their children who think defiantly posting hate speech in the replies when they've been asked not to is an act of courageous cultural rebellion.
No, see, he's overthinking this. He's massively overthinking this. It's not a cultural rebellion. It's funny.
Everything like that you just showed me.
Hey, what's up?
Talking about the zombies in this.
Can you masturbate zombies? Is that necrophilia? Oh, and then there was something about his like virile penis.
I slept rather well.
Go jerk off to another AI trailer for Zack Snyder's Justice League sequel instead, and let me talk to the drones.
What the fuck is he talking about? Like, I'm kind of conservative kind of thing. Like, I'm not fucking clue what he's talking about. Zack Snyder, AI, Justice League. That sounds totally gay. What the fuck?
Meanwhile, he's saying, let's talk to the grown-ups while referencing...
Yeah, and we're like a Superman fucking t-shirt.
The R-word is a hurtful and gratuitous word that should have long since outgrown as a society. And yet I see people using it everywhere online. My own comment section, Threads, Blue Sky, Facebook, Twitter, especially Twitter, those I know there. They probably say it on Reddit too, but I don't know that firsthand because there's no reason for me to ever go to fucking Reddit.
Okay, Reddit is shit. Reddit is gay.
Society has outgrown the word retard. Describing those with mental impairment.
Yeah, now we just use it to describe retard. It's a very progressive thing to do, isn't it? And I'm using progressive as a pejorative here. Like, this word is bad. We need to change the word in another 20 years. You're going to want to change like intellectually disabled or whatever, because that's going to be a pejorative.
It'll be like brain challenge.
Yeah, and all the edgy motherfuckers are going to go, you're intellectually disabled. See what I did there?
When you all use challenge on it, you fall back on a couple of predictable excuses. First, you say, I'm not using the word to attack intellectually disabled people. I'm using it to attack other people who deserve it for how they're acting.
Yeah, like retard.
Oh, he's got us there.
We're not using the word to attack mentally disabled people. We're using the word to attack people we don't like for being retarded.
Yes, but he's about to explain how he's better than us.
Yeah,
You're assuming that a person with an intellectual disability is something no one would ever want to be or want to be elected to.
No, probably not. Hang on, of course you don't want to be a person with a fucking intellectual disability.
It's a disability.
Would you like a broken leg?
Yeah.
I mean, this is how progressive he is. He wraps his fucking mind up in all sorts of knots. Are you saying that being like a spastic is not good? Yeah, kinda.
It's the feelings bearing. It's his emotions.
The other excuse I see is you talk that way because people are right talking. And you're meeting them on their own terms and talking to them in the language they understand. Oh, okay.
No, not really. I just working on this giant fort.
I simply went to CCLV's Twitter page. There's so many more instances of this. Like, apparently he grew up in like a bit of a redneck area, and all the adults around him said the N-word and stuff. So it's like a guilty complex, it's a guilty conscience. He feels like he has this racist heart.
I bet he does that thing, you know the thing the priests did, where they whip themselves over the back for being naughty?
Yeah, but it's like he's got this racist past, like familiar, like family past. And he's got like a phone for on behalf of his ancestors. By the way, I couldn't find this, but I swear to God it was true. His grandfather was in the Ku Klux Klan.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's like full leftist guilt mode.
Wow, Granddaddy Woodmaster.
Yeah, you here on the left side of the spectrum are going to do that too. I said.
He's so fucking condescending, isn't he?
We're going to play that a few more times.
It's also intelligence. Fool, dupes, dipshit, shithead, shitbrain, shitwit, fuckhead, empty-headed fuck. Those are just off the top of my head.
Yeah, but what if I'm an empty-headed fuck? You know, won't my feelings be hurt, Steve?
Yeah, what if you grew up and you were just like simple Jack?
Yeah, what about the fuckwit community?
Yeah.
He's not thinking beyond the progressive rules, and I think it's just too bigoted beyond.
I know this is a bit out of left field, but you remember that, do you remember that nursery rhyme to cut the tiger?
No one said tiger in the 80s.
Here's the thing. People with mental disabilities aren't offended by the word retarded. Retards are offended by the word retarded.
I'm better about it now, and I'm always trying to be better still. So you might remember that quite a while ago, one of my regular series on this channel was called 5 Stupid Things. I did that series for years, and at one point it was one of my most popular series. But I had a friend who worked on me gently, patiently, but persistently, and finally considered that stupid, which isn't as viscerally hateful as the R word, but still carries some of the same baggage. Was it something I needed to say?
Okay, I gotta say that sounds a little bit homosexual.
I had a friend who worked on me,
Yeah.
Using sperm.
But second of all, stupid. We're really going after stupid. So it's not going to stop until all the words are like that. See, notice now we have to say that whatever letter slur, because there's already a whatever letter word. Stuff like the N-word, the N-slur, the R-word, the R-slur. You know what I mean? Everything has to be fucking abbreviated, and it's gay because we're fucking adults, and it's just noisy for us.
This is crazy. He wants to go after every single word that could be ableist. Like moron, idiot.
He just attacked the fuckhead community, and I don't appreciate it. I mean, as a card-carrying member of the fuckhead community, empty-headed fucks do not really appreciate it.
Speak for yourself.
And what about this? I'm a proud fucking retard.
Yeah.
Right? I'm a proud retard. I wear that label proudly. So you're saying that I can no longer have ownership of my words?
That's really that's very big.
It's like the blacks and the N-word. If they want to say it, they can say it, of course, it's their word. I am a retard, and I would like to say retard.
Yeah, see, if I want to say that I'm like a ping pong pussy pushing Asian.
Okay!
I can say that though, you know? It's in my DNA. I'm going to regret that.
I'll give you another example. I used to use the T search that refers to translate. And my friend said, I understand why you're using that word. But I just wanted to point out that I
Doing all right.
another slur that way.
I just fed them, so they ate. Probably sleeping somewhere.
The fucking T-slur! So what is that? Is it
Yeah.
It's not even a fucking slur, it's just half of a word.
It's half a descriptive word. You are a transsexual, sir.
I think it's overboard.
There are other words I would remove from my vocabulary. The C word. And yes, the N word. I said
I can't see Steve being able to pull off the C word.
No, it would sound weird, wouldn't it? Look, he wouldn't say it because it's too misogynistic, you know what I
But
mean?
he said he removed it, which implies that he has used it before.
Yeah, that's right. See, he's too careful about not wanting to appear misogynistic. To the point that he sits there and gets flagellated by his fucking ex-wife about liking Angel better than Buffy. He divorced the wife. As far as I can remember, this is actually fucked. It's a really sad story. He was talking online to some other chick, right? Some other chick who's married, right? And he left his wife to pursue an online relationship with this other chick who's still married and said, I'm not leaving my husband. And then she, the ex-wife, came out on Reddit, I think, and did like an exposure, talking about how much I've got 50 years and all that sort of shit. It was like veiled language, so people figured it out because she's like, my husband is like a popular progressive YouTuber and blah, blah, blah. And it was like, it was so obvious.
Oh wow, the wife didn't end up leaving because he wouldn't get rid of
No, She's just so disgusting. Steve, I'm not trying to be mean, Steve. I'm just having a laugh.
I'm standing here with my
Growing up, I heard that word said at one time by so many of the adults in my life, but it was just normal.
See what I mean? He's like got a guilty conscience because it's like his family's DNA. So all of a sudden, no one else will ever use any word that he deems to be unacceptable because his uncle or something said,
Sometimes people ask, be mindful of the words they use, and use the word term like the R word, they complain about language. They accuse the ones asking them to remove those words from their vocabulary, wanting to neuter their speech. That's not what I'm asking. Stop saying the R word.
Steve, that's just call a spade a spade. That's absolutely what you're advocating here. That's fine. That's fine. If you want to be right, just come out and say, hey, listen, I'm right. And please don't say these offensive words. Anyway, that's what Steve Jobs has been up to.
Yes, I do. Monetize.
Yeah, you got your monetization back. Congratulations. Other people are still doing tough. I hope you should see sense. But yeah, happy days now.
Yeah, crossing my fingers to all those people because it sucks.
Alright, thanks for watching. We'll catch you later. Ta-ta, bye-bye.
See ya.
Alright, that's gonna work out kind of nicely.
Yesterday. Alright, so that's 5 in a week, 3 in a day, pretty good. Essentially, Congress, at least the basic part of Congress, is actually pushing towards mass denaturalization of citizens.
I like regular coffee. I like my coffee flavored.
Well, I've proven correct within a month. And wait till you hear how the Islamic community has responded to these calls for mass denaturalizations with violence. Wow, they're really making it go. Fantastic job, Subcard. Sub-7 guys who play yourself, motherfuckers. Dive into it. Trump has tweeted.
Hey, buddy, how you doing? Cool. I don't know why they're... I wonder if they're going to try to run GTA 5 and GTA 6 at the same time. I mean, most of the time, like when they make a sequel, they kind of abandon the old version. But GTA 5 is still pretty popular. I haven't played that in a while. I'll probably play that later today.
This is pretty incredible. Any power. And I see a lot of people look at my foreign policy and realize I don't look at my foreign policy implements and Americans. Americans love my foreign policy. Oh, you know my foreign policy opinions? Oh, explain. If they're trying to kill you, blow them up. Quickly. I don't believe in proportionate response. You kill them. You eliminate the threat. If they're trying to kill you, they gotta fucking die. That's my thing. You can argue heavy-handed. I argue that correctly-handed. We obliterate the fucking shit out of them. We have military. They still decide to fuck around. They're gonna find us. Hey, if you're bad, fuck bag. Anyway, Iran is going insane about it. All right, they actually shut Jerusalem, they shut down the bluster unit, which is actually a war crime. Anyone paying attention to it, not that anyone does, because when terrorists do war crimes, of course they do war crimes. But when we do something that did a war crime by international law, all of a sudden we're losing their credit. Have you noticed the asymmetric warfare that we need to fight today? Just so you know, pay attention to notice. Don't lose people check right now. Social media landed hundreds of meters, not thousands, hundreds of meters from East to except for the Western Wall and Al-Aqsa. These motherfuckers are bombing their own home site. That's so fucking alright, it's a terror. It's just a surprise. I'm trying to hammer our home, that's what we're destroying here. Why did they just give titles to trials? They didn't like it. I don't know, man. They just think a fucking terrorist dictator, managing 10,000 people and bombing millions around Iran for the last 47 years. Alright? A cancer, if I get it right. And I will not apologize. Now, obviously, the is losing their mind in the greatest possible way. Alright, so you have to understand, AI is one-shot the entire third world. So they went from posting AI videos of Israel getting destroyed because they won the war. Now they have tools in the out because they didn't have a speed. And they're like, oh my god, and this is speed. Nobody has 6 fingers. AI does. Yahoo no more. 3,000 million views. You has 5 fingers. I don't even know what they're looking at. So, let's understand, right? Every time they see a reel, they're like, it's AI. Actually, we've already killed you. And I know because I watched an AI video of us killing you. So I know that when you know real videos of yourself alive, that must be AI. These people are so deluded, they're convincing themselves of things that don't happen, and then when they see with their own eyes things that are happening, they're convincing themselves that things that are happening are actually not happening.
This has got to be almost 6 months old, this video.
Right? We have one-shot the third world AI. They were clearly not ready. They were not ready for this level of technology.
Nope, that's not what I wanted. I wanted...
But I'm convinced that, like, there's a huge part of Africa that's just, like, looking at AI images the same way your grandfather is using an iPad. But anywho, we're not going to get into racism. There was a tragedy.
Total disaster.
That the people have the power to redeem the fools upon the meek, the grace is shower. It's the greed, the people rule. Yes!
Oh my god, that was horrible.
Good hello, everyone. In my last video, I spent days poring over spreadsheets full of federal election data. And now for this video, I decided to embark on something even more tedious. Watching Rise Up, Sing Out, a concert for the First Amendment hosted and organized by Jane Fonda.
There is a clear effort to destroy our fundamental democratic rights and dramatically retake our form of governance.
If I had $1 for every time a Hollywood celebrity told us that the sky was falling because they didn't get the link politically, I'd have an attack by one of Jane Fonda's beachfront properties.
Some of you have flags in your seats. And we ran out of flags, so 500 of you have flags now.
How breathlessly confident is your production?
Two-thirds of your own audience.
I really think you can see the letter. Every state in the country and Hawaii.
Someone want to inform annoyed Jane that Hawaii's been a state since 1959.
From church halls to beer halls. People are watching.
And by beer halls, she clearly means a dimly lit dive bar in Portland where the bartender lost the remote and everyone's too busy drinking $10 IPAs to notice what's on the screen.
This is truly a historic town hall. It was built over a century ago by suffragists. It was built to house their lead for political education. And they stood on the very stage and rallied the masses about women's vote and many other really important things. They are
false. The 19th Amendment, which gave women the right to vote, was ratified and added to the U.S. Constitution in August of 1920. The Town Hall building in New York City wasn't officially dedicated and opened until January of 1921. So unless the suffragists had a DeLorean parked out front, they didn't help change the Constitution on that stage. They were just enjoying a brand new building after the fight was already won.
But right now, the government and its cronies is routinely violating its First Amendment to silence artists.
Violating the First Amendment to silence artists? King, you are literally standing on a stage in the middle of Manhattan, surrounded by celebrities, and broadcasting this to the entire world. If the government is actually trying to silence you, they're doing a spectacularly terrible job at it.
Defunding museums, the National Endowment of the Arts.
First of all, no. The National Endowment for the Arts isn't being funded, but the NEA did terminate dozens of grant offers, including a $20,000 grant to the National Queer Theater for its 2025 Criminal Queerness Festival. Let's get one thing perfectly straight here. No pun intended. The government declining to hand you a taxpayer-funded subsidy is not censorship.
Banning books.
Name one single book, just one, that the federal government has actually banned. And I'm not talking about deciding that genderqueer doesn't belong in the middle school library. I mean an actual federal where citizens are reading it. Name one. I'll wait.
Canceling TV hosts who speak out. You can't, it's really bad.
Again, name one single host that the federal government stepped in and canceled. You can't, because it never happened. Furthermore, when the network fires the host because their ratings are in the toilet, that's not a government censorship conspiracy. It's called capitalism.
We are the majority. But if we work together to stay unified and know in our hearts that we're going to win, we will win.
Hang on, I thought you guys were the silenced, marginalized resistance fighting against the establishment. Now, you're the vast majority, the scrappy rebel alliance, and the Galactic Empire at the same time. Pick a lane, Grandma. Next was Lily Gladstone, the star of Marxist resistance of the flag. Let's go. Insights she's bringing to the resistance. Absolutely none of you understand what I'm saying. I'm gonna nod solemnly to prove how progressive you are.
We said to ban now most specifically the Muncie monopoly on Manhattan, this island of many hills that we now call Manhattan. Monopoly land tenure and stewardship of this place predates any lease, any real estate, any idea of individual ownership, and Lenape steps have carved the first halfways of this land that now supports this exclusively listed fucking city.
Yes, while it's true that the Lenape inhabit the region, the idea that their culture is dishonest, considering that Native American tribes frequently warred with other tribes over territory and resources.
Today, you don't have to look too hard to feel the sea. I mean, navigating the streets of New York City, Broadway, named for the trading path, or trade with non-native Neanderthals.
Named with clauses and is interpreted as place of the bark heather. The Dutch then widened the existing trail right away, which literally translates from Dutch to, wait for it, Broadway. Not because
You think you're pretty smart now, don't you? Hey, eyes
Named the shoreline of glistening shells where Lenape hand-selected their wampum.
Actually, she's somewhat right about this one. Even a historically illiterate clock is right twice a day.
What the hell do you want this time?
Morphed into the Dutch West India Trading Company's favorite form of currency in New Amsterdam, which they subsumed into their own style of trade.
Wait, so the Dutch actively engaged in local commerce and adopted the regional currency to facilitate trade? Oh,
Speaking of that, how did we get Wall Street? Metaphorically, one of the world's hardest walls to breach. It was in fact named after the 2,000-foot-long wall built by black bodies enslaved by the Dutch West India Trading Company to evict and displace Lenape from these lands. Yeah, Wall Street was a literal wall, y'all.
Wall Street was named after a literal wall built by the Dutch in 1653, but it wasn't built to evict and displace.
Thank you very much. Now you go fuck yourself.
Built to protect the New Amsterdam settlement from attacks by the British and from pirate raids. And while enslaved Africans were forced to help build it, so were white colonists. The wall on Wall Street was a general defense fortification, not a bespoke anti-Lenape eviction fence.
For the first peoples of this land, unfortunately, this has been ongoing since the birth of this country as we know it today. So perhaps the question then is not how did we get
It's
here?
your job from can't say I'm not surprised.
So what did any of that have to do with Kentucky? Also, no one's being pressed, especially not Lily Gladstone, the Australian actress who self-describes as queer, pansexual, and makes sense to me, what's your problem? The next guest was Joy Reid, who brought her usual brand of calm, measured, and totally completely went off the rails.
The threat is not coming, friends, it is here. Is now running it. He is weaponizing the agency to bully and press the wire
Once again, delivering the absolute latest breaking news directly from parallel events where everything feels like is a vast right-wing government conspiracy.
Don Lemon arrested. George Ford arrested.
They were arrested for because, breaking the law has legal consequences. Who knew?
Terry Moran fired
Because of massive government censorship plot, he was let go for a severe breach of journalistic standards and clear and obvious bias, like going on rants calling the President of the United States and Stephen Miller world-class haters. The kind of stuff that real journalists at least attempt to hide.
Scott Kelly fired from CBS by the clash of far-right ideologues who bought it and handed it over to a zealot named Barry White.
No, Scott Kelly was fired because he had a public meltdown and told his new boss that he wasn't welcome in 60 minutes.
Jim Acosta out at CNN.
CNN didn't fire Jim Acosta. They wanted to move him from the 10 a.m. slot to midnight, which admittedly is a domain choice. But instead of taking it, Jim Acosta decided to quit.
Karen Attiah fired from the Washington Post,
as I covered in a previous video. Karen Attiah wasn't a martyr for journalism. She stepped out amid massive internal friction, controversy over toxic tweets, and a track record of alienating her own colleagues. But sure, let's pretend it's some deep state conspiracy.
and maybe more than a year ago. My show had value, and that Jeff Bezos ripped Democracy Died in Darkness off of the masthead of the Washington Post.
Except it's literally still there. I just can't understand why innocent is required to tell
What I've been doing. A handful of billionaires consolidating local stations, newspapers, national networks, turning American journalism into what they hope will become a U.S. version of North Korea.
Oh, I didn't realize that state-run media and Pyongyang was 24 hours a day relentlessly criticizing the government. If corporate billionaires are trying to turn American journalism into North Korea, you're doing a really bad job at it. Next up is Maggie Hall, the author of Love in the Library, a children's picture book based on the story of how her Japanese American grandparents were placed into an internment camp during World War II and eventually fell in love.
When I wrote a picture book about how my grandparents met during World War II in a Japanese American internment camp, I didn't expect a lot of controversy. But I found myself in the center of a national one about censorship when I was offered a publishing deal, which was contingent on me removing the word racism from the book. I said no, and I said no publicly, and I thought that would be the end of it.
However, this has nothing to do with First Amendment censorship, not even remotely. What actually happened was Scholastic offered to license the book for a very specific supplementary education collection to make the book a better fit for elementary school students. The publisher asked her to read portions of the author's note that reads, "There is probably joy. This is not an excuse virulent racism, nor does it minimize pain, the drama, and the deaths that resulted from it. But it is to situate it into the deeply American tradition of racism." As much as I would hope this would be the story of distant past, it is not. It is very much the story of America here and now. The racism that put my grandparents in Minidoka is the same hate that the children came on the border. It's the myth of white supremacy that brought slavery to our past and allows the police to murder black people in our present. It's the same fear that brings Muslim bans. It's the same contempt that creates voter suppression, medical apartheid, and food deserts. The same cruelty that carved reservations out of stolen sovereign land that paved the trail of tears. Hate is not a virus. It is an American tradition. I feel like you got to squeeze in, microaggressions and carbon footprints. But to be clear, this isn't a political science dissertation for college students. This is the author's note at the back of a children's picture book. So what Scholastic asked Mrs. Dakota Hall to do is edit a sentence to their improbable joy is not excuse or minimize the pain, the trauma, and the deaths that resulted from it, and then remove all this bullshit. Because as Scholastic wisely pointed out, a section about white supremacy, voter suppression, and medical apartheid goes beyond what some teachers are willing to cover with kids in their elementary classrooms. Gee, you think? The author told NPR, without its proper context, the story runs the risk of being like a lovely little love story. And that's not what it is. If the entire meaning and context of your story hinges on an author's note back under the very end of the book, then you didn't do your job properly. But also, did she even read her own book? All the Japanese Americans from the West Coast were in prison camps like Minidoka. Elderly people, children, babies. It didn't matter who you were, just what you were. And being Japanese American then was treated like a crime. And though each camp was different, they were all the same. Uncomfortable and unjust. See what I mean? But again, this has nothing to do with the First Amendment or censorship. I mean, which is more important? Having the story of your grandparents reach an even wider audience, or ensure that your modern-day political manifesto stayed completely intact? She obviously chose the latter.
I was first made aware of the violence of book bans. I had understood that book bans were a problem. I had not until then understood that they were ruining people's lives.
The definition of a ruined life and actual violence is Scholastic asking you to tweak a political paragraph at the back of a picture book, then you have lived an unimaginably privileged, sheltered life.
It is not the government's place to tell us what we get to read.
It's not. Keeping politically charged content out of a taxpayer-funded elementary school is not a ban. No one is stopping a parent from logging into Amazon and buying a book or taking their child to the local public library to check out. The government isn't stopping you from reading books. You just don't have a constitutional right to force it into a third-grade curriculum. But wow, this is such a great concept so far, right?
Hello, my name is Rabbi Jason Spooner. I'm the Rabbi of Information
It's going all right. It's still early morning, so.
You know, like you're ordering a highly customized Starbucks drink.
All I can say is thanks be to God. Every God for all of us.
How's it going with you?
Ah, yes. Thanking every God. The classic cover all your bases theological approach.
The First Amendment's freedom of religion clause prohibits the government.
I will do that. I check it before and after every stream. I'm starting to put my announcements on there that when I'm starting stream. So, and that has been helping a little at the front end of the stream.
I guess religious freedom only matters when it's politically convenient. Next up, we have actress Tessa Thompson, who apparently just about a word of the day counter.
I came across a sort of phrase that I've never heard before, which is collective effervescence. And, right? And that is what we are engaging in tonight.
Collective effervescence. I'm pretty sure I accidentally bought a bottle of that one time at Whole Foods. It tasted like vodka and pretension. But enough. Please put your hands together for Julia Roberts, who was apparently completely overwhelmed by the sheer magnitude of her own rape.
I don't know about you guys, but my heart is beating really fast right now. Let's all just put our phones down. For just a second, think about that. They will survive without you.
Multi-millionaire movie star tells audience people who paid hundreds of dollars to be there to stop filming her. Groundbreaking activism.
Renee Colgan is not a woman. She is a woman, a queer woman,
Oh, degree.
who is doing the very best to do good in an unjust world. And I am honored to celebrate her life tonight because the life she gave is our responsibility to care.
She's not a symbol. Well, at the same time, using this exact symbol and but not to buckle up, because stumbling to the microphone, Robert De Niro. Tantrum.
When I hear Trump say, as he did a few days ago, I don't think about Americans' financial situation. Not even a little bit. I say, shut the f*** up.
What about Trump's rights? Back into that heavily, deceptively sharing value.
When you're being around the president, to what extent are American financial
Not even a little bit. The only thing that matters is that I'm looking at Iran, they can't have a nuclear weapon. I don't think about I think about one thing. We cannot let Iran have a nuclear weapon. That's all. That's the only thing that matters.
Trump wasn't talking about the domestic economy in general. He was talking about it in regards to the Iran war. But yeah, why let the quotes get in the way of a good De Niro rant?
I love a country that's led by a racist, misogynist, and a phobic tyrant. Let me just say, I can't love the country that's led by Donald Trump.
The classic conditional patriotism of Hollywood elite. I love democracy in my country when my preferred political party is in charge.
I want my country back.
When normal everyday Americans say, I want my country back, Democrats label it as some kind of dangerous abuse. But when Robert De Niro says it's anyway, as I mentioned at the beginning, this was supposed to be a concert. Man, did the audience get their money's worth.
Singing resistance is a joyful movement that, through the power of collective singing, mobilizes and organizes people to take loving and radical action in solidarity with those most impacted by state violence.
No one gets left behind, guys. Just like the U.S. Greece. Nothing says hardcore political resistance. Take that, fascism! The only struggle here is trying to survive the agonizing second-hand embarrassment of watching grown adults play like 10 revolutionaries. What a bunch of self-indulgent hippie bullshit.
Oh my god. Alright, I gotta stop this. I'm cringing so hard my back hurts, dude. This is just fucking terrible. Oh my god. Alright, I'm gonna listen to a Dracula biography while I play zombie game.
A vast Ottoman army under Sultan Mehmed II advanced on the city of Targovishte in Wallachia. After weeks of grueling ambushes and pitched battles, resulting in thousands of Turkish deaths, the Ottomans were preparing for a siege of the Wallachian capital. But when a detachment of Ottoman cavalry was sent ahead of the main force, they encountered a sight that shook them to their core. They discovered a forest of impaled bodies. There were over 20,000 Ottoman captives rotting in the summer heat before the walls of Targovishte. The forest of stakes stretched for 2 miles in a vast crescent up to half a mile wide. This macabre sight was more than the Ottomans could take. The scale of the horror, the astonishing extremism of it, broke their spirit, and the Sultan and his army retreated from Targovishte. The architect of this horrific victory was Vlad III Dracula. He is cunning, military rules, military extremely, saved the country of the his willingness to do everything, to go further than anyone else to achieve victory, and his refusal to compromise would ultimately mean his death. This is the incredible story.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, let's do that. I think that's a wonderful idea.
Vlad was born sometime between 1428 and 1431, the son of Vlad II Dracul. He was born into a time of great conflict between the Christian kingdoms of the Balkans and Central Europe and the Ottoman Turks, who were determined to conquer them. Vlad was born into a Wallachian aristocracy called the Boyars. The social structure of Wallachia was quite simple. There were the free peasants who worked the land, the boyars who ruled over them, and above them all was a prince known as the voivode. There was no simple succession between the voivodes of Wallachia. Legitimate rulers had to be of the royal line, ultimately descended from Basarab I, but none served for very long, and there were many usurpations by brothers, cousins, and sons of the two main factions. The great enemy of the Draculeshti faction was the Danishti. The succession was, in practice, about who was the strongest, and this often came down to who could retain the support of external allies. Because Wallachia was squeezed between larger, more powerful kingdoms. Vlad's father, as voivode of Wallachia, simply had to submit to one overlord or another, namely his mighty neighbours, the kingdom of Hungary to the north, or the Ottoman Turks to the south. To understand Vlad the Impaler, we must first look at the actions of his father, the choices of Vlad II Dracul, his allies and enemies, and the horrific manner of his death would all have a profound impact on the character of his son, Vlad III Dracula, and the often extreme actions that he took in his life. To become voivode, Vlad II had courted the powers of Central Europe, especially the Kingdom of Hungary. In fact, this was where the famous name of Dracul, meaning dragon, came from. The Order of the Dragon was a chivalric order created by Sigismund of Luxembourg, who was King of Hungary and eventually Holy Roman Emperor. Its primary purpose was to defend Christendom from the Ottoman Turks, and Vlad II was welcomed into the order, becoming known as the extended to his sons in the form of Dracula, and his clan, his descendants, would become known as the Draculeshti. But when Sigismund died in 1437 and Hungary was weakened, Vlad II sought instead to ally with the Ottoman Turks to the south. The Ottomans always threatened invasion across the Danube, and without Hungarian support, the Wallachians had no hope of resistance. And so Vlad II travelled to the Ottoman capital at Edirne, formerly the Byzantine city of Adrianople, to pay homage to Sultan Murad II, on the way he agreed to pay an annual tribute.
Where is this zombie?
To the Ottomans in their coming attack on Hungary. Allying with the Ottomans seems rather to go against the oaths to defend Christendom from the Muslims. But this was the reality of ruling Wallachia. Protecting your own position, keeping enough of the boyars on your side, and ensuring your peasants were not wiped out in an invasion was a balancing act where every decision had potentially terrible consequences. To openly defy the Sultan would have meant the invasion of Wallachia, thousands of Wallachians killed and taken as slaves, and Vlad's own death to replace him as voivode by a boyar who was willing to preach. And so Vlad II tried to play both sides as best he could. After supporting the Ottoman attack on Hungarian and Albania, he was paid a visit by one of the great nations of the age, John Hunyadi, the Transylvanian Hunyadi, as one of the most powerful nobles of the world, and the leading opponent of Ottoman expansion. And he was a terrible enemy and the king allied to both Vlad II and Vlad I. And now in 1440, Hunyadi, who was the greatest military commander and was already a great influence, decided to bring Wallachia back to the Hungarian control, and the stick. In the next Ottoman invasion of Transylvania, Vlad II supported Hunyadi. And when the Ottomans were crushed, the Sultan demanded Vlad come to Edirne to explain himself. To defy the Sultan's order would have been baffled to the invasion of Vlad. Vlad returned to Edirne and immediately seized the prison.
I wish you could identify the zombie by the sound it made. I mean, the fat ones kind of make a different sound, but the average zombies all make the same sound.
And so he left his eldest son behind to rule in his absence. Mercia II was only about 15.
Definitely get your ass out of trouble.
Captives who could not side humbly against the Sultan. Because of this, when Yari invaded Wallachia, deposed young Mercia and Vlad II's cousin Basil in return for his support. After about Vlad II was released by the Ottomans, and he returned to retake Wallachia, making himself voivode once more with the support of his son Mercia and the Boyar faction that had remained loyal to him. Vlad was forced to leave his 2 young sons behind as hostages of the Sultan, and they would remain for about 5 more years. Vlad the Impaler, the great and terrible enemy of the Turks, was in fact partly raised by them and educated and instructed by Ottoman tutors. But what was his life like as a hostage of the Sultan? Before his time in Ottoman captivity, Vlad's childhood had been perfectly pleasant. He had joined his mother, his 2 legitimate brothers, and his father when they all went to the Wallachian capital Targovista in 1437, and there young Vlad began his training as a knight. He was taught how to fight with the sword, the bow, and the lance, and he excelled especially at horsemanship. He also learned Italian, French, and Hungarian, as well as Latin for international diplomacy. The religion of the Boyars was Orthodox Christianity, but Roman Catholicism had an influence too, and because of the influence of Catholic Hungary on his father, young Vlad was also instructed in the Catholic faith.
Oh, there in the corner.
At an early age.
What's in here?
Between Catholic and Orthodox Christians in
Good.
Europe was for some people a greater concern than the struggle between Christianity and Islam, and this was extremely important in the politics of the region. When Vlad and Radu were raised by the Ottomans, their education as princes continued because the Turks intended for them to be potential vassals when they came of age. There was therefore no attempted conversion to Islam, as would have been counterproductive. The Turks became Christian princes who would deliver a principality,
I hate when it
along
does
with
that.
taxes, produce, and slaves for the Sultan. Vlad did become fluent in Turkish, and he had contact with the future Sultan and his great enemy, Mehmed II, who was just a few years younger as well. You can only imagine the details of their relationship. In some ways, they were a similar character, and both would become lifelong soldiers. Both would attempt to centralize every quality of themselves at the expense although the future Sultan would have large endless war of conquest, while Vlad was peaceably for his time and in defense of his group. Vlad chafed under his Turkish captors and was whipped frequently as punishment. Whether this, along with the separation of his captivity, had a lasting
Whoa, where'd this guy come from?
his younger brother, Radu, who was also handsome due to his exceptional looks.
Fighting friends now.
He had a far more accommodating nature than his Vlad, and was one of the favourites of Mehmed II, who was a few years older than Radu. As Sultan, Mehmed II had 5 wives and 4 children, and he maintained a royal harem of other women, as was the custom. But there are accounts that he also loved and lay with boys, and that he took the same as a young Radu. To what extent these are true is hard to say. Perhaps they helped to fuel the hatred Vlad had for the Turks and the Sultan. And whatever happened, it seems that this period of captivity was when Vlad and Radu began to fall out, and as men they would be great enemies, and whatever horrors were inflicted upon them in their captivity, Vlad would turn against the Turks, while Radu turned entirely towards them. Their father negotiated with Sultan Murad II in the summer of 1447, and no doubt the fate of the boys was a bargaining chip that encouraged Vlad Dracul to make favourable terms. Unhappy at this renewed close relationship, John Hunyadi invaded Wallachia, intending to remove Vlad II and replace him with a more pro-Hungarian warlord. This was when the factions who were opposed to Vlad's faction decided to rebel. They captured Vlad Dracul's oldest son, and burned out his eyes with hot irons, and then Vlad Dracul managed to make it out of the Prado and fled south towards the Danube, perhaps intending to reach the Turks, but he was caught and killed by Ladislav II of the Danubian. John Hunyadi momentarily claimed Wallachia for himself, but thought better it was awarded to the pro-Hungarian Bolar factions who had supported him by making Ladislav II of the Danubian into the warlord of Wallachia. There is a story, a legend perhaps, that a loyal retainer of Vlad II named Kazan carried the dead prince's sword and his collar with the insignia of the Order of the Dragon to young Vlad Dracula at Derna. This Kazan also related in graphic detail the murders of his brother and father at the hands of the Danubian, and it is said that Dracula now Vlad II in person. In early 1448, Sultan Murad II released young Vlad Dracula so that he might take the Wallachian throne and bring his people back under Ottoman control. Now this was highly unlikely, because he had few soldiers, little money, and no power. He was between 17 and 20 years old, and he had not been in Wallachia for 5 or 6 years, so he did not have the network of political influences necessary to make a move on the throne. But there was an opportunity. In October 1448, the Hungarians clashed with the Ottomans in a huge battle on the plain of Kosovo. With the Hungarians were Germans and Bohemians, and Wallachians under Vladislav II. It was a great throw of the dice by Hunyadi to crush the Ottoman forces and throw back the endless invasions. But the Christians lost the battle. And so while the voivode was still 200 miles away, Dracula reached Targovice with a small force of horsemen supplied by, or at least paid for, by the Ottomans. There he claimed the throne. He also tried to have Vladislav II seized on his return, but Dracula's men failed. Vladislav then rounded up the Wallachian troops returning piecemeal to Wallachia and rode against the young usurper. Vastly outmatched, Dracula was defeated in battle, and he fled. His first period of rule was just 2 or 3 months long. And where else could he flee to but back to Derna? However, Vladislav II's overlords, the Hungarians, had been defeated, and the voivode of Wallachia sought terms with the Turks, moving into the Ottoman orbit. Dracula sensed that his life was in danger from hosts who might no longer need to be their pet voivode, so he fled to Moldavia. He was safe there from Hungarian and Ottoman interference, and soon Bogdan II would become the voivode of Moldavia. Bogdan was related to Dracula by marriage, and young Vlad proposed Bogdan's son, who would go on to be Stephen the Great. During this period, Dracula fought with Stephen and Bogdan II against the forces of Poland. Dracula's stay ended when Bogdan II was murdered and usurped by his brother Petra Aron in October 1451. Vlad and Stephen fled across the border to Transylvania, which was dangerous, because that land was ruled by Hunyadi, but they had few options left. From there, they fled to the Saxon colony town of Brasov. But Hunyadi and Vladislav had word that Dracula was in the area, and so he ran again to Sibiu, another Saxon town that would give him sanctuary. John Hunyadi became increasingly suspicious of Vladislav II's growing closeness with the Turks. When Vladislav sent a delegation of boyars to congratulate the new Sultan Mehmed II on his ascension to the throne, Hunyadi seized the duchies of Thagarash and Amlash from the Wallachian prince. These were key entrance points into and across Transylvania. And Hunyadi believed he had a ready-made replacement for Vladislav in the young Dracula, and now he took him into his service. Dracula was even taken to Buda, where he was present at Ladislav V's coronation, so that the exiled Wallachian prince-in-waiting could swear allegiance to the new king of Hungary. Perhaps it seems astonishing that Dracula would make peace with Hunyadi, the architect behind the deposition and murder of his father and brother. But Dracula wanted the throne, and he wanted to get his hands on Vladislav II and the other boyars who had actually done these terrible deeds. And if he was ever to wrest Wallachia away from the Ottomans, he needed Hungarian support. So for once he swallowed his pride and accepted from the King of Hungary responsibility for the defence of the Transylvanian frontier. This was a role his father Vlad II had once fulfilled for Hungary. But now, in 1451, the Transylvanian border was about to become a far more dangerous place, because Sultan Murad II had died from a stroke, and his son Mehmed II was now on the Ottoman throne. And for good reason, he would become known to history as Mehmed II the Conqueror. In May 1453, the 21-year-old Sultan conquered Constantinople, and then he turned his attention to the rest of the Balkans. In the face of the unstoppable might of the Ottomans, Vladislav II turned even more towards the Turks and made further overtures to the Sultan, agreeing that Mehmed's armies could march through Wallachia. By 1455, Mehmed was mustering men and supplies on the southern banks of the Danube. Mehmed's forces already had control of southern Serbia, but now his target would be Belgrade. Its strategic position was vital. Once Belgrade fell, the Danube would be open for an Ottoman fleet and an army to attack Buda, and eventually even Vienna. Hunyadi led the organization for the defense of Belgrade, pulling in every ship and every man he could. But the Wallachians under Vladislav, now allied to the Turks, were raiding across the border into Transylvania, tying down troops that were desperately needed in Serbia. Negotiations between Hunyadi and Vladislav failed when the Wallachians stirred up a rebellion against Hungary in Fagarash in April 1456. Finally, Hunyadi agreed to give Vlad Dracula what he had long been waiting for: Hungarian support to retake the Wallachian throne. In June 1456, Dracula set out through the pass over the Carpathians at Bran, with a small force of exiled boyars and Hungarian mercenaries determined to take the throne and to take his revenge. Dracula set to work gaining the support of the Wallachian boyars, especially those of his father's line, and all those disaffected by Vladislav II's increasing support for the Ottomans. It took him less than a month.
Hang on, I gotta run to the bathroom right quick. I'll be right back.
Stronghold, from the mountains and foothills of the north to the plains of the south, before he was strong enough to move against the murderer of his father and elder brother. Dracula finally caught up with Vladislav II somewhere near Targovishte and cornered his enemy. Before the two armies, Dracula made Vladislav an offer to fight him in a duel to the death, single combat, with the victor winning all of Wallachia. Now, Dracula had no need to do this. He could have had his men kill Vladislav, or he could have taken him prisoner and had him executed. He could have done anything he liked, instead of risking his own life and risking complete failure in his life's mission. But as far as Vlad Dracula was concerned, honor demanded that he face his enemy man to man. What is more, victory in a duel would prove to all that God was on his side. And it was a bold statement to the watching boyars that Vlad was not a weakling who had men to do his killing for him. It showed also that he was a warrior, not a politician, and that he was willing and able to get his hands dirty. And of course, Vlad Dracula cut down his enemy and so avenged the murders of his father and brother. Wallachia would now be Vlad's, but the Sultan was still coming for Serbia, and so Dracula returned to his duty of guarding the Transylvanian passes against Ottoman attacks. Because with Wallachia now allied to Hungary, John Hunyadi could move his Transylvanian forces to Belgrade, while Mehmed II would need to keep some of his own forces guarding the Danube against Wallachian raids. But while this was going on, the Turks had begun the siege of Belgrade and were battering the walls with an enormous number of guns. Hunyadi gathered an army and a fleet and attacked the Ottoman fleet on the Danube, winning a magnificent victory before reinforcing the city. Mehmed II ordered assault on the breached walls. They were thrown back and routed in a spectacular and unlikely victory. Mehmed II retreated all the way back to Sofia, and in his rage had several of his generals executed. This glorious victory was marred, however, by the death of John Hunyadi. A plague, a common occurrence in sieges, ravaged the battered city in the days after the victory, and Hunyadi was one of its victims. So Hungary lost its greatest soldier, and Christendom lost its staunchest champion, while Vlad Dracula lost the great lord who had once been his enemy, but who had become his strongest ally. In August 1456, Dracula was formally elected by the High Boyar Council and confirmed in the Cathedral of Targoviste with the title of Prince Vlad, son of Vlad the Great, sovereign and ruler of Ungro-Valakia and the duchies of Amnash and Faragash. As voivode, Dracula set out to work on international relations. He wrote to the mayors of the important towns of Transylvania, to Hunyadi's son Laszlo, and to the boyars, who were still not aligned with him. He also worked to undermine the rule of the Moldavian usurper Petra Aron, intending his cousin Stephen, who was still with him in Targoviste, for the Moldavian throne. This was not merely repaying the favour for a relative, it was in Valachian interests to pull Moldavia away from the Ottomans, as they were under Petra Aron, and away from Poland, where they had been traditionally, and into the Hungarian sphere, along with Wallachia. And in 1457, at the head of 6,000 Wallachian soldiers, courtesy of Dracula, Stephen took on and defeated his uncle, the murderer and usurper of his father, in 2 battles. And Stephen was crowned as Moldavia's prince. At the time, it looked like Dracula's first great success, and of course it was. But Stephen would go on to have a far longer and far greater reign than his cousin. And Dracula had done well, but Hungary was still reeling from Hunyadi's death and the danger of further Ottoman attacks. And Wallachia could not afford open defiance of the Turks. When Mehmed II sent ambassadors to Targoviste, Vlad had to agree to a tribute of 2,000 gold ducats, which was no small sum, but even worse was the agreement to allow the passage of Ottoman armies through Wallachia so that they might assault the Hungarians in Transylvania. In return, the Ottomans recognized Dracula as the rightful ruler, in effect promising not to undermine his rule or invade in an attempt to place another Wallachian boyar on the throne. That was the power the Ottomans held over him. Still, when they asked him to come to Constantinople to pay homage to the Sultan, Dracula refused. Perhaps he remembered well what had happened to his father under the previous Sultan. Perhaps he could not bring himself to stoop so low. Thus, buying himself time through diplomatic agreements with his neighbours Hungary, Moldavia and the Ottomans, Vlad set to work on Wallachia. He repaired and extended Ponari Castle, a potential bolt hole perched high on a steep rock precipice in the mountains. The rules of his agreements with the Hungarians and Turks stated that he could not build such a fortress, but Vlad did it anyway. He needed safe places, and he was willing to push his luck with the overlords who both needed it, at least for the time being. He also had projected his power to the lowland plain, and so he founded the fortress of Rekt in June 1450, building on and reaching several villages in the area. Of course, this would go on to become an important city. He also fortified the nearby monastery of Snaggle and built a line of small forts along the plain and the river. It should be said that fortifying monasteries and forts was not the least bit unusual. These defences were built, of course, to defend Wallachia on the other side of the Danube, but you needed them against internal areas too. Wallachia, like many monasteries, was fundamentally divided. In the preceding centuries, each steep side narrowed up and ruled by a different clan, and each chief ruled his lands and people like a king. By the late medieval era, these lords thrived as boyars under the voivodes they elected. But those ancient divisions were still there below the surface. Over the previous 40 years, there had been 12 voivodes. Despite the foreign powers sponsoring candidates, the boyars were where the real power lay in Wallachia. Any time the sitting voivode displeased them, they could choose back another of the royal blood, including Vlad's younger brother, who still served the Ottomans. This fundamental instability at the heart of Wallachian politics kept the voivodes in check, and so it kept Wallachia weak in the face of its more powerful neighbours. Dracula did not wish to be another short-lived ruler. He did not want to leave Wallachia in the hands of a puppet of the Ottomans or of Hungary. And in fact, there had been rebellion against his rule in Spain. There was still conflict with Vladislav II working against Dracula, and the powerful boyar chief Aldu the Great had organised an unsuccessful successful revolt in the months after Dragon's power, and still Elwood maintained a private army agitated for Vlad's removal and controlling parts of the country. And so Dracula began a great purge of the Bolas. They say a tyrant should commit all his atrocities at once and put them behind him, rather than drag them out over his entire reign. And certainly Vlad did his best in that regard. It is now further carried out the acts that give him his famous slogan. First of all, his men ambushed Elwood the Great and then impaled him and his entire family. Only Elwood's brother escaped. The fled to the town of Brasov, which would become the main refuge for Wallachian dissidents during Vlad's reign. This was an extreme act. The Bolas understood. Elwood had maintained a fort. The voivode attacked and defeated. It seemed to them that the fighting was over, and when Vlad invited them to Easter celebrations, 200 boyars attended with their families. Just as the guests finished their meal in the banqueting hall of the palace, boyars and their wives were seized by Dracula's men. They were dragged out through the gates and impaled en masse beyond the city walls. The act of impalement itself required a very long, sturdy pole with a sharpened end. At this point, sometimes the grease with lard that aided entry into and through the body. It began at the victim's rectum and ended with an exit through the mouth or throat, by which point the victim should have mercifully expired. The sheer horror of this method of execution is of course what made Vlad the Impaler into the legendary figure he was. What drove him to commit such appalling acts against not only his own boyar lords, but their wives. While slaughtering his enemies by sword, or beheading, or hanging might have had the same result in terms of removing them from the field, but mass impalement was the means to terrorize the survivors, his enemies, and even his allies. It was a message sent loud and clear that Vlad Dracula was not to be trifled with. He did not impale the boyar's children, but their fate was hardly much better. As they were marched to Homewood Castle, they slaved away, firing bricks and hurrying them up the slopes to build the towers and the keeps. No doubt these children were ultimately worked to death. And Vlad the Impaler was not done. In fact, he was just getting started. Vlad replaced much of the old aristocracy with new men who had been loyal to him, granting confiscated boyar land to low-born followers. He created a new institution above the boyar council that would be responsible for carrying out his will, and he filled it with his loyal men. He also created a new military officer class, drawn from the free peasant soldiers who had performed well on the battlefield, men who could be relied on in battle, but who also owed their newly elevated social status to Vlad III. And he created a small standing army, a royal bodyguard. By these and other reforms and his purges, Vlad was in some ways seeking to emulate the centralization he had witnessed at the Ottoman court. He intended to make himself as much of an autocrat as the Sultan was. He also generously supported that other power in his realm, the Romanian Orthodox Church, granting them tax immunities and other privileges, especially to monasteries, and he extended church properties. In return, he expected them to be his voice amongst the common people. He especially supported the monastery of Snagov on an island in a lake a few miles from Bucharest. This place is rumoured to be the location of Vlad's body, although no one knows for sure. Certainly though, he trusted the monks, and they trusted him enough that they guarded his royal treasure here at Snagov during the Ottoman invasion of Wallachia in 1462. His relationship with the Catholic Church in Wallachia was not so close during the early part of his reign. In fact, there is evidence of him directly attacking Catholic monasteries and even impaling Catholic priests, but only when they defied him. Mainly though, he replaced foreign Catholic abbots with Romanian ones. With his external allies secured, his internal enemies purged and repressed, and his reforms begun, Vlad in 1459 suddenly refused to pay the agreed tribute to Mehmed II. In return for Ottoman peace, the Wallachians had to pay a carefully calculated monetary sum and specific amounts of grain and animals to Constantinople. The lowlands especially were so productive that the Turks saw Wallachia primarily as a vast granary. There was also the devshirme, the blood tax. Although forcing slaves into military service had a more ancient origin, the Ottoman system was perhaps formalized by Rekt I, the conqueror of Adrianople and much of the southern Balkans. They took young Christian boys from the conquered lands and impressed them into military service under the Sultan. They were given the name Janissaries, meaning new troops, and they came to be known as Janissaries. This was a way for the Sultan to centralize his own military power, rather than being reliant only on his regional lords for raising troops. Of course, the devshirme was a terrible evil. Christian boys between 8 and 10 years old were taken from their families in the lands subject to Ottoman power, and not only would they be lost to their families forever, they would also be made into soldiers and turned against their own people and all the enemies of the Turks. And in 1459, Vlad Dracula said, enough. Hungary was now ruled by John Hunyadi's son, Matthias Corvinus, who was supported by his uncle Bannerate, Michael Szilágyi, a long-time ally and friend of Dracula's. And it was this relationship that led to further atrocities by Dracula, this time committed against the Saxon towns of Transylvania. It perhaps seems strange that the Saxons were here at all, but these German colonies had been founded generations earlier along the Wallachian Transylvanian border to provide an economic boost to the region. The Wallachians and Transylvanians were populated by free peasants and their nobles, and they had few merchants, skilled craftsmen and artisans, and no real towns. The rulers of these lands took the more modernized kingdoms and realized they were missing out on potential tax revenue from the kind of economic activity that generated actual cash instead of just crops and livestock. So they invited Saxons to set up colonies in their lands and awarded them favourable incentives in taxation and political freedom. During Vlad's early reign, he had maintained a positive relationship with the Saxon towns, and many had supported the war against Vladislav II. In return, he had given them a commercial treaty promising to protect them against the Ottomans and the right to unimpeded trade across Transylvania and Wallachia. But this close relationship changed when the Hungarians squeezed the towns for more revenue and the town officially revolted. Michael Szilágyi called on Dracula to bring the region to heel, and Dracula brought his soldiers, stormed the walls of Italy, and looted and burned the city. The ringleaders fled to the towns of Braga and Sibiu, and far from stamping it out, the rebellion spread. The Saxons, clever merchants, rather than noblemen soldiers, at once began a propaganda campaign against Dracula, spreading rumours that he was a secret vassal to Mehmed II. They also now supported Dracula's rival faction, the Daneshki. And Dan III, brother of the deposed Vladislav II, established himself in the Saxon town of Braga and claimed the throne of Wallachia after being elected by a group of Daneshki boyars and other lords who had fled Dracula's earlier purges. Another rival stronghold was declared in the Saxon town of Sibiu. Vlad Dracula's half-brother, known as Vlad the Monk, was funded by the Saxon merchants and supported by more unhappy boyars. And the third in the Daneshki clan, a son of Dan II called Bazarad, also had the backing of boyars alarmed by Dracula's reforms, and he was also supported by Saxon funding. All of Dracula's hard work was coming undone. All of the blood was spilled to secure his throne and centralise power, and now it seemed it was not enough. There were still so many enemies, and they had moved just clearly not gone far enough with his purges and punishments. First, their trade protection, the merchants of Wallachia and the Italian republics with favourable tariffs. This had the benefit of bringing a small but important Wallachian side against the Italians, and then Vlad moved against them militarily. This was in 1458 and lead to Dracula's infamy being spread across Europe by Saxon operatives. That's not to say that they were they certainly intended to rally the support of Catholic Europe, especially the Germans, against their enemy. Their pamphlets and woodcuts made Vlad into an inhuman monster. The later Nuremberg Chronicle of 1488 says the following, quote, "Both women and men, young and old, perished. Some he brought home with him to Wallachia and impaled them there. He declared peace, and during the same there were many merchants and wagoners and workmen impaled. He also had a large family extinguished and impaled. Ambassadors numbering 55 were sent from the Kingdom of Hungary and Saxony and Transylvania to Wallachia. Dracula kept them waiting for 5 weeks and had staked them for their impalement. Meanwhile, he went into Wurtzburg and destroyed the grain and had all the crops burned, and he had the populace led into captivity. Then Dracula rested near St. Jacob's Chapel. He had the outskirts burned. Also, when the day came, early in the morning, he had women and men, young and old, impaled around the hill by the chapel, and sat down among them, to breakfast with enjoyment. Sibiu and Brasov were within the duchies of Fagras and Anhalt, which were the princes of Wallachia within Transylvania. Sibiu was ordered to give up the sword of Wallachia, and Brasov had to be bound with damnation. Neither town was owned to Wallachia, and so they had to give up. It's fair to say that Vlad was not a man. He was also a brilliant and brave soldier. At the head of a small cavalry force, he surprised the Saxons with a lightning raid through the passes to burn the lands that supported Sibiu and Brasov, slaughtering and impaling villagers and burning their homes and fields. Saxon merchants abroad in the country were tortured and impaled. These acts would be amplified through later propaganda and German pamphlets that described Dracula as 600 Saxon merchants alive, which were true to the spirit of the campaign, in reality. But the campaign of terror worked. The Saxons were Marshal Shilagi to call Dracula off and offered to hand over Dan III and his supporters and to pay 10,000 florins for war damages. Shilagi's nephew, and Brasov, the king went one step further and threw his support behind Dan III against Dracula. Once again, the tables had turned on Dracula. His extremism was almost successful, but he had more enemies. Still, he went back to the burning and slaughtering until he smashed to the suburbs here is where he in the forest of the impaled and the sight of the townsfolk on the walls. Saxon propaganda tells us he had been dipped in 1460. Dracula captured Dan III. He had a grave dug for his rival while Dan waited beside it, and he even had to listen to his own funeral service before Vlad beheaded him. And then, unsurprisingly,
Yeah, that's my water source.
Dracula killed thousands of the Transylvanian Germans, but eventually the Tyrskovians organized a fragile peace. Dracula would pay some of the damages his campaign caused, while the Saxons were required to pay an annual sum to Dracula to maintain a 4,000 strong mercenary army, in theory to help Dracula defend them against the Ottomans. Because war against the Turks was coming. In the face of continued Ottoman expansion through Serbia and the Sultan's plans to cross the Danube to take Wallachia and Moldavia, the Christian kingdoms declared and organized a crusade. And now, Dracula would go to war against the Turks. As the forces of Christendom readied for action, Dracula's old friend and ally, Marshal Shilagi, was captured by the Ottomans while on reconnaissance in Bulgaria. They tortured him for information on Hungary's military preparations, but presumably were not happy with his answers, or lack thereof, because Shilagi was executed by being sawn in half. Now comes another legendary moment in Dracula's life, during a visit by Ottoman envoys. They had come to discover the Wallachian intentions in the coming crusade and to make a final attempt to bring the voivode back inside. That must have been a faint hope. Dracula had stopped paying tribute, and the Turks had ever since been launching raids on Wallachia across the Danube for plunder, and to take Wallachian peasants, especially children, for the Ottoman slave markets. When these raiders were captured, Dracula had been having them impaled. And now the Sultan had executed one of Dracula's few allies in a deliberately brutal fashion. So tension was running high when the envoys came to court. The prince's men instructed the diplomats to remove their turbans as a sign of respect. The envoys explained that the turban was not the equivalent of a Christian's hat, and that their custom demanded that turbans never be removed. Dracula then strengthened their custom by having 3 spikes driven through each of their heads, pinning the turbans in place forever. Coming to terms at this point was highly unlikely, but the communication was still ongoing between Voivode and Sultan. And Mehmed II decided to use this correspondence to trick Dracula into putting himself in danger to be seized and killed. Hamza Pasha, the Bey of Nicopolis, and the Greeks in his service, Thomas Capitolinus, offered to meet Dracula at Jerju, an important fortress on the Danube. When Dracula was almost at the fortress, the Ottomans sprung their trap and ambushed the Wallachians. But Dracula was a step ahead of them. The Turks had in fact ambushed a decoy party, and the Wallachians in turn ambushed the Turks. Dracula then rode on to Jerju with a select group of his men, all dressed as Ottoman soldiers. At the gate of the fortress, Dracula presented himself as an Ottoman officer and influenced Turkish demanded they let him in. Once inside, his men attacked and started killing the garrison until the Turks surrendered. Dracula had in effect declared war, and he did not sit back and wait for the Ottoman invasion. Instead, during the winter of 1461-62, he led his horsemen back and forth across the Danube, wading deep into Ottoman Bulgaria at phenomenal speed, attacking Turkish forces from Serbia all the way to the Black Sea. He divided his cavalrymen into small raiding entities that moved quickly and lived off the land, caused havoc and disorder, while Dracula sought to capture or destroy all the forces along the Danube that the Turks meant to use for their invasion of Wallachia. In February 1462, Dracula wrote the following in a letter to Charles the Venus, quote, I have killed men and women, old and young, who lived at Poblicica and Marcella, where the Danube flows into the sea, up to Rahova, which is located near Chile, from the lower Danube up to places such as Samara and Juba. We killed 23,884 Turks and Bulgars, without counting the remains of his heads.
I'm alright. I gotta go do a little bit of grocery shopping later. I don't want to buy too much because I'm going to be leaving in a couple days.
The 1,000 Ottoman troops that he had captured in the ambush near Jeju were force-marched to Two especially tall stakes were made for the treacherous Hamza Pasha and Thomas Capitolinus. Dracula had been so much damage to the Ottoman operation, their invasion would be delayed, giving him more time to prepare Wallachia. However, the resources of the Ottoman Empire were extremely vast. The Grand Vizier Mahmud, with an army of 18,000 men, rushed to capture Brila, a port on the Wallachian side of the Danube. After taking it, Mahmud struck north into Wallachia on a vast raiding mission, doing to Wallachia what Vlad had done to Bulgaria. But when the Turks returned, loaded with booty, to recross the Danube, Dracula attacked and won a great victory. It was recorded that Dracula killed 10,000 of the Ottoman army. This victory brought Mehmed II into the field in 1462 with a vast army designed to conquer Wallachia once and for all and to turn it into a province of the empire. There were at least 60,000 regular troops and 30,000 auxiliaries, including Bulgarians, Serbians and Anatolians, and they brought with them 120 cannon. There was essentially no hope for Wallachia. They were vastly outnumbered and outmatched in terms of troop quality. After all of Vlad's purges of the boyars and his organizational reforms, Wallachia had lost
how close am I to that?
elite. And even more of those boyars opposed to Dracula fled for Transylvania at this critical time. This left Wallachia a core of horsemen 10,000
I'm only halfway through the street,
while the rest of Dracula's forces were peasant soldiers raised through a mass
I
levy
guess we can
of
start working
20,000
here.
infantry. Clearly, if there was to be any hope at all, Wallachia needed allies. Unfortunately, None were forthcoming, and Wallachia was on its own. The Turks brought a fleet from the Black Sea up the Danube to ferry a vast army across. Dracula fought hard to stop the river crossing, contesting the probing attacks before a massive battle at Ternu. What made the difference, more even than the huge numbers and excellent soldiers, was their artillery pounding the Wallachian positions on the north bank. The Ottomans then ferried across light artillery on the first wave. The Turkish soldiers dug trenches after they crossed, to help defend against the relentless Wallachian cavalry assaults that were striving to throw them back into the river. Inspired by the Hussites in Bohemia and previously employed against the Turks by Hunyadi, Dracula also employed war wagons, with men shooting from inside with early firearms. By all accounts, it was a close-run thing, and the difference was certainly the barrages from those 120 cannons. Eventually, all the Ottoman infantry, including the garrison, had been ferried across, and the vast army advanced into Wallachia. Mehmed II had also brought with him his replacement puppet voivode. Vlad's younger brother, Alexander Hansen, rode ahead of 4,000 horsemen of his own. The Ottoman army moved relentlessly towards the capital of Karlsruhe. Dracula had no hope of defeating the Turks in a pitched battle, and instead began a guerrilla war. Grain stores and crops were burned, livestock and peasants were driven away to the north, and most importantly, wells were poisoned, and small rivers were dammed and diverted to create marshes and boggy. It was June, and the problem of getting enough water for the vast war slowed the Ottoman advance. As they moved slowly through the dense forests, the Turks were ambushed repeatedly. Dracula's peasant army even dug huge man traps and covered them with timber and leaves. The Ottomans were soon suffering from severe dehydration and the scorching summer heat. And every night, the army had to stop and dig massive earthworks to defend from the relentless night assaults. Foraging parties, guards, and anyone outside the defensive camps were taken by the Wallachians in the darkness and in the chaos. What's more, a terrible camp sickness soon spread through the Ottoman army and advanced slowed further. The Turks were deeply affected by these torments, and yet the weight of their numbers and the will of their sultan drove them on through the scorched earth towards the highlands and Karlsruhe. Dracula had grown up with the Turks, and he knew Mehmed II personally. He understood the mind of his enemy. He knew that he could not kill them all, but he could perhaps break their spirit, and make the cost of conquering the land too great to stand. And so, as the Ottoman army made camp in the lands around his capital, Dracula tortured captive Ottoman officers until they revealed the location of Mehmed II's camp. And then he gathered all his best remaining cavalry, perhaps 7,000 to 10,000 troops, and went to kill the Sultan. On the night of the 17th of June, Dracula led the assault known as the Night Attack at Karlsruhe. They came in with flaming torches, shooting arrows and slashing through the Turks with their swords, penetrating deeper and deeper towards the Sultan's magnificent great tent. It was torn down by raging Wallachian horsemen, and the residents dragged out into the torches. It was not the tent of the Sultan, but the two wazirs who were immediately executed. When Dracula finally found Mehmed, it was surrounded by the Sultan's janissaries, who stood shoulder to shoulder and shot their firearms and arrows into the Wallachians, driving them away. To get past the outer guards at the start of the attack, Vlad and his men posed as Turks, calling out the passwords in Turkish that they had tortured from Ottoman prisoners, and now they continued to sow confusion amongst their enemies, shouting out false orders to disrupt the Ottoman response. But with the element of surprise fading, momentum stalling, and the far greater numbers of the Turks beginning to tell, the Wallachians were forced to withdraw. The Ottomans lost perhaps 15,000 men, while the Wallachians lost 5,000, most of them fighting the streets. Vlad had come very close, but it wasn't enough. And eventually, Mehmed II advanced the walls of the Karlsruhe. Its defences had been made formidable by Dracula, and the Sultan was perhaps already considering returning home, considerably more men of thirst and disease in a prolonged siege. But when his men found a forest of 20,000 impaled Turks, stretching for 2 miles outside the city. They had finally had as much as they could take. As the Ottomans retreated, Dracula scored another victory, driving the enemy back across the Danube. But his country was reeling from the assault, and his people were on the verge of collapse. But the Ottomans could not do by force, they were complete by force, and they would lead Dracula's downfall. When he retreated, the little section of the child was Dracula.
What are you kidding me?
The land was burned. Families, fathers. Now Radu is here, by a small Ottoman state, for the peace and prosperity of his leader. All the Ottoman coin. The Saxon towns of the north especially threw their political and financial weight behind him. Where Vlad was an extremist, Vladimir the Handsome knew nothing but compromise. He had the backing of the Ottomans, and with him in charge, the Ottomans were not in a desperate people welcomed what was the turning tide came in cold, and Vlad's political support swiftly vanished. Vladimir growing army. By the end of the year of the Turks, Vlad Dracula fled across the mountains into Transylvania, and Radu III began his rule as voivode of Wallachia. Radu's army chased Dracula from castle to fortress, but Vlad got away. In Transylvania, he had word from Matthias Claudius that he would meet him, and perhaps provide him with Hungarian forces to retake his throne. A desperate Vlad had few other options, but it was a trick, and Dracula was captured in the king's name. He would not suffer a terrible captivity, however. Far from it. The Hungarians found it useful to hold a rival for the Wallachian throne in their possession, to encourage the current one to remain on his best behaviour. Dracula was further honoured by a position in the Hungarian army, and he was even offered marriage into the Hungarian royal family, in exchange for converting from Orthodox to the Catholic faith. In the coming years, the Ottomans continued to chip away at the Balkans, especially Albania and the Scandinavia, and an Ottoman-backed Wallachia under Radu III began to clash with Moldavia under Stephen the Great. Stephen defeated Radu in battle, and the handsome coward ran away, leaving his treasure, his magnificent clothes, his standards, and, astonishingly, his wife and daughter. The defeated, humiliated Radu died of disease, and Basarab III, supported by the Ottomans, took the throne of Wallachia. Back in Hungary, Dracula's time was coming again. To secure Hungarian support, he married Ilona, the daughter of Vlad's old ally, Michael Kilage. She was the king's cousin, and so Vlad was now part of the Hunyadi clan. He had 2 sons with her, and along with an older, illegitimate son, they lived together at the Hungarian court. The extremists had become rehabilitated and even respectable in the eyes of the European nobility. When the Ottomans moved to conquer Moldavia in 1474, they were supported by 17,000 Wallachian troops under Basarab III. The Turks had an enormous force of 120,000 men, but they were brilliantly defeated by Stephen and Vladimir in January 1475. In the face of this stunning defeat, the Wallachian forces not only fled, they turned on the Ottomans. They attacked them and seized Turkish battle standards. This was intended to prove Basarab's loyalty to Stephen and to the Hungarians. It did not work, and Stephen, now one of the great heroes of Christendom, moved to have Basarab replaced by Stephen's cousin Vlad Dracula. Before that could happen, Dracula was required by the Hungarians to assist in a campaign in Bosnia, where he was tasked with capturing Srebrenica from the Ottomans. This newly reformed, respectable Vlad had lost none of his cunning, however, and he disguised his Hungarian troops as Turks and rode into Srebrenica during market day, taking the enemy by complete surprise. He then burned the city to the ground, plundered everything of value, and impaled every Turk that he found. It seems then that Vlad had not changed in his essential character. But that did not put off the Christians fighting against Ottoman aggression, far from it. A papal legate wrote the following, quote, "We tore the limbs off the Turkish prisoners and placed their parts on stakes and displayed the private parts of his victims, so that when the Turks see this, they will run away in fear." End quote. Although the peasants had always loved Dracula, the bodyguards of Wallachia must have wondered what awaited them when Vlad rode back into their lands in 1476 to claim the throne for the third and final time by overthrowing Basarab III. This time, Vlad had allied soldiers from Hungary, Transylvania, Serbia, and Wallachia, and Vlad's invasion was coordinated with the Moldavian army under Stephen attacking from the east. Basarab, however, had the support of 18,000 Ottomans. A bloody battle was fled to the Turks, and Vlad Dracula was crowned voivode in late November 1476. It was an incredibly unlikely return to power, and Europe rejoiced at the news. One of Christendom's most famous soldiers would now, alongside his cousin Stephen, stop the relentless advance of the Turks, and perhaps even turn back the tide. But less than a month later, Dracula would be dead. The exact circumstances of his death are shrouded in mystery, but he was likely killed in a battle near Bucharest. The story goes that Vlad's 2,000 men were ambushed by Basarab, returned from the Turks with 4,000 Ottomans. Another story is that Vlad was assassinated in camp by a Turkish assassin before the skirmish took place. Another story says it was a case of mistaken identity, and he was accidentally killed by his Moldavian soldiers in a confusion of battle, mistaking him for Ottoman. One version has him so killed because he was in disguise as a Turk, a victim of his own cunning. Of course, the legend of Dracula demands that something poetic or tragic occurred at the end. But the death in battle of a lifelong soldier and knight is hardly unusual or surprising. Whatever really happened, after he died, his head was laid in
Look here, boys. We got ourselves a real-life hero. Now, he wants to be paid.
Whether this story also is a little too perfect is hard to say. The final
Better take this job. Good luck.
Story is found by local money. There is a bullshit monastery at Snaggle. Vlad III Dracula was contemporaries with greater and more successful men than he had been. John Hunyadi, Stephen the Great, Scandival, and his great enemy, the warmonger Sultan Mehmed II, all held more power for longer and won more battles than Dracula. But even in this era of the most horrific bloodshed, his willingness to go so far beyond the limits of conventional conduct has helped turn his story, and not theirs, into legend. Vlad features in my novel Vampire Impaler, Book 6 of my historical fantasy series, The Immortal Night Chronicles. It features many of the great battles of the era, like Varna, Kosovo, the fall of Constantinople, the Battle of Belgrade, and the night attack at Targovishte. There's a link to this series and all my books in the video description. Thank you to my patrons for making this video possible. If you enjoy these long videos and want to see more like it, please support the channel on Patreon. There's a link in the video description. Now, please watch this video on the life of Richard the Lionheart. I'm sure you'll like it. Thank you for watching.
Shit, man, I treat you that good, and you don't even fucking tip me.
The summer of 1189, the Jordan Valley.
Alright, hang on a second.
In the Battle of Hattin, Muslim troops slaughtered 16,000.
Trouble's getting into trouble.
Europe's Kingdom of Jerusalem, the most sacred territory in Christendom, falls into the hands of a new charismatic Muslim leader, Saladin.
Alright.
Urban III, as soon as he heard the news, dropped dead from a heart attack.
They saw Saladin as the son of Satan. He was even depicted as the sixth of the seven-headed beast of the apocalypse.
In Europe, tens of thousands of men answered the Pope's call and swore to reconquer the Holy Land. Thus began the Third Crusade.
They fight in the name of faith.
And let me go and pull this up.
Because Hassan did talk about the Rekt game. I'm surprised.
Here we go.
Hello, Muslim rape gang apologist. You good, bro?
By the way, watch his face, watch what he does.
Apologist.
You see, he looked over.
You good, bro?
He looked over to make sure that his hand was on the correct button. And I also want to say that, really, I think he's that he uses his soundboard because the behavior and to the movement they made whenever Kaya appeared to be shocked on the stream. It is the exact one for does the exact same thing. Just interesting, isn't it?
I swear to God, these guys are like, they're bots, right? They get off the fucking races. Very normal. Yeah.
As opposed to supporting terrorists, which are totally...
Speak out against rape gangs. I have, and will continue to do so.
Yeah, when?
The Epstein pedophilia rape gang for a...
You don't actually care about it. You just use it as political capital. This is a political vehicle to you. You don't care if the girls are going to get it. You care about who's is it people that it's politically advantageous for me to say a rapist? Oh, it is? Oh, well, then they did it. For sure, definitely. It's a huge problem. Everybody should talk about it. How convenient.
Example. I speak out against.
Or, by the way, the Epstein rape gang was very bad. Thousands of victims. And actually, they said, so according to the, they said there were approximately 1,500 to 2,000 victims of Epstein. And this is also, compare that to the, 250,000 that were the victims in just the UK, right? I mean, it's literally like 1 versus 1,000. It's and probably more, right? It's 1,000 versus 250K. Oh, gee, yeah, exactly. So there's really no comparison between these two things. And also, the fact is that, like, Epstein is a bad actor that we got rid of, and that's it. The worst thing is a systematic allowance of this behavior. That's what makes it worse.
Outside of that,
Shit, I should have repaired my wrench.
Consistently have criticized the nation state of Israel for having a pro-rape January 6th.
Israel.
One of the things that you guys need to remember is that Hamas never rapes anybody. Nobody in Pakistan or in Gaza or in Palestine. It's only Israel that rapes people. This is that's why he has to remember.
I bet he's from Nashville. No, I think this guy is, I think this guy might be a Euroid. Dude, that's crazy. He's a real person.
Oh my god. That's a new one.
We were just talking about this last night, if you remember. Go ahead, do a rating of the UK rape gang. Buddy, I've covered the supposed, Muslim rape gang controversy.
Immediately poisons the well. Instantly poisons the well. I've covered the supposed, and then he goes on to create ridiculous. You're immediately trying to poison the well. It's obvious what you're doing, and everybody knows it.
Since like 2013, okay?
You've been talking about it since 2013. Why? Whenever you were saying, what was it? Old enough to count, old enough to mount. Does that count as you talking about it? Because that was the only time that I heard you saying anything about it was prior to this. Never heard you talking about this at all? Not good. Gross? Yeah,
just because Rupert Lowe recently rehashed the old school.
Rehash the old school. This is more minimizing, right? This is more dishonest language that's being applied in order to avoid having anybody criticize, your ethnic group.
You're denying it? No, I'm not. Are there Pakistani people who have committed rape on British soil? Yes.
Okay.
The primary perpetrators are still white men.
According to the 84% had somewhere around there. So actually that's not true. What happens if, like, let's say 30% of them are Pakistani? Well, Pakistani Muslims are only 6% of the population, and they're represented at 30% of Muslim behavior. That's 5 times more likely than what their counterparts would be. So I think that even if you use this reasoning and you look at, like, not only are you wrong on, like, just a numerical basis, you're wrong on that basis, number one, but on top of that, you would even be wrong on a per capita basis, even if you were technically right.
That shit, because you don't give a fuck about rape. You only want to turn it into some sort of racialized, some sort of like race-based crime.
Yeah, there's a race-based crime in some cases whenever they're saying that they're raping these girls because of their skin color and because of their religion. That makes it a race-based crime. That's correct. Yes. I think that we all know that we have rapists in every country. I just think that the idea is you shouldn't import more of them. It's pretty simple.
What am I denying? Am I denying that, Pakistani men or other migrants have done rapes on British soil? I'm not denying that. I'm denying the idea that it's just Muslims that are raping.
But there is a massive overrepresentation of demographic groups that are doing bad things, and it's true here in America. And the idea of, well, we have to be equal, we should never look at demographic trends at all. Like, I'm sorry, but whenever you have Asian Americans and Black Americans, and Black Americans are 20 times more likely to commit a murder than the Asian person is, you have to ask yourself what's going on there. You do. And this is the same thing with the rape gangs in the UK. Do you think it's Japanese people doing this? How many Japanese people are doing this versus how many people from Pakistan are doing this? And until you want to confront these uncomfortable truths and look at the reasons why they're happening, you just really are trying to lie to people because you don't want to look at reality. You don't want to look at what's actually happening. And that's the problem. Like obviously, again, this is more, well, this isn't really true, and it minimizes, disqualifies it, yeah. And it's also very obviously, like, he's deliberately misusing and misunderstanding statistics and probability. Yes, exactly. And there's also the other huge component to this, too, is that everybody agrees that, like, whenever a white person is a rapist, they should be obviously, like, they should be hung on a tree. Like, that's what I think. You rape an 11-year-old girl, you're on the tree, you're tomorrow morning, right? That's it, it's over. And so, like, it's really simple to me. Whenever you have somebody like Henry Novak, right, or Novak, and he was killed by a Sikh, right, not a Muslim, but a Sikh, racism. This person, like, is Vikram Digwal, I think that was the name of the murderer, killed him with a knife, right? That person, that's the problem. It's not just the fact that people are committing the crimes. We all would be accepting and understanding that people commit crimes. This is normal. The problem is that you have an entire community and a sub-community from accountability. That's the big problem. And necessarily, like it obviously is, profoundly racist. But the ones that really upsetting and so, is the fact that it was ignored by the government because of accusations of racism. And number two, that it was concealed and insulated by the community that knew what was happening and let it happen. Those are the reasons why people are really mad. That's the actual reason.
White British women in the way that was presented. And this has something to do with Islam. Yeah, I will. We speak out against this. The Muslim community covered it up and the cops covered it up too. Yes, woke cops that are pro-Islam. You're right.
It's not that they're pro-Islam. It's that they don't want to.
they don't want to get accused of racism. They don't want to, and they were even trained to do this. They're trained to do this in order to treat minority groups differently than they would treat a native British person. So it sounds right, Chris Tomlin in the design. Yes, exactly. You probably noticed this, but it's on the same British women.
Like has some real instances and then a whole deal of inaccuracies.
How do you do that?
Okay. But you don't give a fuck. You don't give a fuck about the 87% of the person inquiry Muslim. Does that, okay. Great question for you. Do you think those are all the rapes?
No, I think it's even worse. Yeah, I think it's even worse, actually. Because you have to think about the girls that killed themselves, too. I bet it's probably even... What if, you know what, Hassan's right, what if it's only 80%? Then we look pretty stupid, wouldn't we? I mean, look, only 80% of them are from Pakistan. It's only 80%, not 87%, you idiot. It's only 80.
Do you think that, or do you think that this inquiry specifically wanted to make it seem like only Muslims are doing rapes on British soil?
Well, also, I mean, if it's 87%, only would imply that there was other people besides the 87%, because there's a 100% number, and 87 isn't all of them. So you would logically...
But it is a...
There would be more than that.
Oh, it's a voice swap.
It is. It was.
You say shit. It's like voice swap.
I have an idea for a policy that will reduce rape by 87%.
Something about boys. This is the same as raping women on an industrial scale across an entire country. When you have an entire community that's like basically insulating it, and a government that's refusing to prosecute it. This is the same thing. Using that word? Like this is insane.
Fuck. You want to be the guy who's doing the rapes, it seems.
He's the rapist? Wait. The guys in Bricks and Many Things, remember that? They went and they said the same exact thing. They said, oh no, you stole the Legos. And by the way, him saying that my laugh was fake, are you kidding? Are you kidding with this? Oh my god.
You want to be the guy who's doing the rapes.
He wants to be a rapist?
What do you mean? Am I supposed to hear like a guy who says, oh, these women are whores, they're doing this is classic voice slop, sincerely cares about sexual assault? Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, I think a lot of people do. I think they absolutely do. I think that it's totally okay to say some women are hoes and act like hoes and they're annoying and they have dumb opinions, but we don't want to have them get raped. That's disgusting. Yeah, I mean, duh, of course. I mean, everybody knows that. Anyway, I think they made one more thing about me.
Hello, Muslim rape gang apologists.
Well, that's about right. You're trying to downplay it, and remember what I said before about how Hassan will always downplay and always try to muddy the waters whenever it is bad behavior that's being done by that group. And then this is another one. Okay, this is me on Israel.
More knowledge is his job. I guess you
Yes, exactly. Every single time. It's so weird. He's downplaying it. He's 100% trying to downplay it. And this is the thing that I feel like a lot of the women, because there's a lot of women that watch this on, right? And you know, he takes. I don't know how a hairy Turkish man has the biggest feminine energy on the entire website. I don't know how this has. And there's a lot of women that watch him. I think he's a little guy, and on top of that, like he takes. He thinks like a woman a lot of times. He thinks like a chick. And so I think that they watch him and they're like, yeah, that's so true. You're so right. You know, and that's it. And so that's it. I'm very disappointed. And this is
I already have a grave digger, so I guess I'm going. The pipe bombs are a pain.
As long as it's being done by somebody who he can use.
You got any jobs that pay better than the last one?
It is important. Let's get one thing straight. You're not working with me. You're working for me.
Speaking of as a boy, I want to show you plenty of the. I want to show you another take. Asmongold begs you to stop.
Hey, if there's any modders in my audience, see if you could mod this game where Trader Rekt is less of an asshole.
Basically engages in harassment, misunderstanding, and borderline
Because I'm not gonna lie, I am sick of his mouth.
in an attempt to create negative sentiment about my mind and to potentially get me banned. Hassan, I think, probably works with this account. I have no idea but I think it's very likely he works with this account to coordinate other forms of misrepresentations of myself in order to push this narrative. It's in his name. So normally it's like, oh, nobody does this, like my community doesn't do this. You're doing it right now. These people are actual Goyim, and you've been convinced that Israel is your biggest enemy, while you side with other people that want to ethnically and demographically replace you in a different way, and you think that they're on their side. That's what's happening to you, and you're being played for a fucking fool. You've been poisoned. And do you know why? It's because you're winning. It's because you're winning astronomically. You're completely destroying every one of their designs. You have totally removed the idea of, genital mutilation for children because they've been psyoped by their parents and think that they're the opposite gender.
Yes, this is a real thing that was happening all the time. I'm glad that it's been destroyed.
If it was a real thing that wasn't happening all the time, then why wouldn't it just be easy for you to condemn it and say that it's bad, and then say nobody should do it? Why not? You can't make an argument to triviality and not have it immediately reversed on yourself. You're right that a lot of people were not, and there's a spectrum of this. Very few kids were given gender transition surgery, but more of them were given gender transition hormones or hormone blockers. And even more of them beyond that were allowed to socially transition with help of a school, a medical professional, and also the parents. I view all three of these as problematic, but the third one obviously is the worst. So if you actually don't think this is happening and it's not a big deal, then why wouldn't you just immediately say, yeah, it's really bad and I don't support it? It's because you want people to basically assume that your takes on these these social issues are accurate, and then you hold all the class issues behind them. You can't say that the social issues don't matter if you will never compromise on the social issues. GM just got arrested. Hold that after this. Yeah, remind me.
Has Twitch changed the policy to allow white supremacy now?
Yes. Has Twitch changed its policy to allow white supremacy? I don't know. Has Twitch changed its policy to allow rape apology? To promote raping white women? Did they change their policy for that?
Okay. Sure. It costs a fucking arm and a leg to keep up with your groceries and keep up with your bills. But you're winning. Yeah. Why are you winning? We're owning the libtard. Okay? Also, it's perfectly cool and normal and valid to have to sign a document that says you will never disavow the beautiful nation state of Israel is one of your It's good. I love signing loyalty pledges to Israel so I can be a school teacher in the context. Why would you ever say that that's strange?
That's totally fine. I don't agree with that either. This has nothing to do with what I'm talking about. All I recognize is that just because you don't like Israel, that doesn't put you on my side. There are a lot of different groups of people that don't like Jews and don't like Israel. The Houthis don't like Israel. Does that mean the Houthis are on my side? Of course not. That's my point.
Excuse me? What are you, an anti-Semite? Why would you talk about that? Israel, please stay focused, because there's never been a moment in my life where I have maintained this position that like TV shows are woke now, so that means it's good, and that means we're fucking winning. As a matter of fact, during Peak Woke, many people might. I would say that you enable the people to do it, and you represent the people to do it. You absolutely do. You are absolutely an enabler of the woke bullying squads, the forced bullshit in your shows, and also, like, if you are not saying anything against them, and you are finding yourself on the same side as them, and you're voting for them and advocating for them, you're basically supporting them. Not have known this about me. I routinely railed against the quote-unquote SJW messaging campaigns that hyper-focused on television shows. And I said that this was a byproduct of, being powerless and recognizing your powerlessness, which is why you were choosing to have some semblance of control and some way of feeling as though you have, as though there is an avenue where people are responsive, an institution being responsive to your needs. And it was usually during, it was just college, right? And I kept reminding people that this was silly. And a lot of people would get mad at me for that. And I was like, no, real power comes from actual political organizing, labor militancy, being able to claw back some of your... Social messaging absolutely matters, and you know that. That's the reason why you try to involve yourself and involve other people. So this is the reason, and the way that you know that this is accurate, is that Hassan has multiple said, he said on multiple times, that he wants to collaborate with other people and other streamers in order to normalize his language and his ideology in the eyes of other people. So this is what he said. He's openly just simply stated this. And so because of that, I think that's an indicator that you clearly understand the power of media and the idea of soft and subliminal messaging and basically creating a narrative and a hyper-reality where people believe certain things and how that hyper-reality will manifest into actual reality. And that's the reason why you do it. Your own productive output, that you are responsible for, having some autonomy in the workplace, or getting your wishes across to politicians. That every single thing that he just said isn't possible in China and Cuba, and he gasses them up all the time. That's the reason why Hassan doesn't actually care about these issues, is that he's willing to compromise these issues all of the time whenever it's with his favorite communist dictatorship. So the one issue that he will never compromise, though, is the support of Islamic terrorism. China supports Iran, and I think also Cuba does too, to an extent. I think Cuba attacked Israel, for example. That is the one core of his ideology. That is the one main thing that he cares about more than anything else. And the reason and the way that you can tell that is the fact that that is the one thing that he will never compromise. He will never compromise any level of negative criticism or negativity around Islamic terrorists. That is the core of his ideology, and all of the class politics and everything else is simply a vehicle to advance that core ideology. Israel political power. All this other stuff is bullshit. Meant as a distraction to make you feel like you are, actually accomplishing something. Asmongold is now doing the other side of that. It's the reverse SJW. It's the anti-woke SJWs. The injustice, the social injustice warriors. Okay? From the social justice warriors to the social injustice warriors. That's precisely what Asmongold we got together. So it's not that person who's always trying to racist and terrorists who's prepared to happen. I don't know how much this really even believes. Focus on television shows that are now anti-woke. That's idiotic.
That's not how
Okay, well, if it's idiotic, then just let it go. If you actually think that it's not a big deal, and you actually think that it doesn't matter, then just let it go. But you don't want to let it go. Because you act like these cultural war issues are a distraction, but you will never compromise on them.
That's not how they work. Yeah, I gotta find that secret
What do you say?
You're going to go out and virtue signal about how bad this is, but then also run defense for the rapist gangs that are doing it to girls that are 11 or want a 9-year-old one. In Iran, they have 9-year-old wives, but you're going to go out there and talk about how Nick's saying this is bad. This is a double standard. Obviously, wanting to marry
Thank you.
girls is bad categorically. If you can't draw a distinction between that, then that's your problem.
Has been dad watching me.
No, I just haven't gotten around to it.
I wouldn't say anything, but he should tell you all up.
Yeah, I know.
I know you're not confrontational.
I am. You should do.
Alright, so guys, he really
appreciates all the kind words.
Everybody, yep, alright.
Has been dad watching me. But yeah, these are the guys who are like.
Well, this one,
a particularly clever orator or a decent propagandist.
That's because I do lie.
I'm gonna try to
The reason why I'm not good at that is because I choose not to be.
build it all the way up to there.
I always state what my intention.
I mean, it's still going to be kind of what I always do is an area, you know, where I could fight on my base
So I don't like
instead of from it.
I view it as kind of cheating. Because if you're
But I'm going to try to design it so that I can at least start fighting from
the
it.
difficult thing, in my opinion, is to tell people the truth and then get them to accept it anyway. Hassan just lies to people. Yeah, obviously it's going to be easier for you to convince people whenever you tell them one thing than do something else. Like, yeah, of course. I never do that. I never will.
Bring down shit that he sees on his Twitter timeline, right? He's just like basically rehashing tweets.
You're reading a tweet right now. You're literally on Twitter.
I better.
Off of his timeline, he doesn't actually have.
You're on Twitter. You're also writing opinions. You're on Twitter.
Oh, you know what? I'm going to need to go out and collect more wood.
Pushing for these values on his own. All he can do is just like respond to stimuli. And that's the reason why he keeps going back and forth on Israel stuff.
Hilltop in case I can find coal and nitrate.
It's very simple, actually.
Never too early to start making ammo.
But I also don't blame everything on Israel. And I view that the focus around Israel is created by left-wing people in order to divide the right. So they're united against, or they're divided with the issue of Israel, and they're fighting over Israel rather than fighting over the demographic replacement, for example. I think that if Israel disappeared tomorrow and everyone on the earth went to the moon, we would still have the same people pushing the same ideologies and the same stuff. Hassan obviously is from Israel. I don't think he's from Israel. I'd be surprised if he was. That'd be quite a plot twist. But his ideology would remain. And so my argument is simply that, yes, Israel is a problem in America, and their influence is a problem, but at the same time, it's not the only problem. And there are larger problems that exist that can be solved simultaneously, and anybody who positions themselves as against Israel does not mean that they are pro-America. That's my position. It's more nuanced than just one or the other.
And then the next day he'll be like, while Fuentes for all the whole bad shit that they're doing that I agree with. At the same time, we gotta stop talking about this Israel stuff.
Yes, that's correct. So this is something that's called having a different opinion. So Nick aligns with me on a lot of issues. He doesn't align with me on every issue. And even with some of the Israel things I agree with him on, I just think that they are less crucial than he does. Why would I make an enemy out of Nick, who I think is trying to help and save Western civilization, over a disagreement about a country that's on the other side of the world? Whenever he agrees with me on all these other topics, it's stupid. Why would I do that? Duh. They want you to take the bait because they want you to fight with each other rather than against them.
I am already full.
That's it.
It's inconsistent, and as long as he keeps hitting the fuck the song line, as long as he keeps saying like, no, these wokes are actually ruining your life. Think of the culture war. Think of the culture war.
If the culture war didn't matter, then stop talking about it. Stop advocating for it, and stop promoting people that advocate for it. But you won't do that because you know that it matters.
As long as he hits those lines, then it's fine.
The culture war and the people that are doing it provide insulation for his ideology. And that's the reason why he will never promote it. He will never go against it. That's the reason why. And sometimes well, Nick says less racist stuff than Hassan. Was Nick ever advocated for SA for air patrols? As far as I know, he hasn't. I have no idea. But yeah, anyway, I know I talk about Hassan. Like, in my opinion, I think these topics are, oh, this is definitely, look at this. Oh, wow. Like a fight between Asmongold and Hassan, especially in this forum, Asmongold will always win. Because Asmongold can engage with attacks more honestly than Hassan can. Hassan is like having to fight Asmongold on like 2 or 3 different levels here, where one, Hassan might legitimately be intellectually outpaced. I don't know. I don't actually know where this guy's mind is anymore in terms of like learning facts right now. Because he's lying. Hassan is fighting on Twitch, which in terms of just the demographics lines, I'm going to be more favorable towards Asmongold, I guess. Like, tend to be more white, tend to be more first world, tend to be more, non-Muslim, whatever else. And then 3, Hassan is trying to do propaganda for everything. Hassan is no longer ever communicating on any factual basis. It's always this cringy, like, Marxist analysis. So Hassan is, like, on so many different levels trying to do this fight. Hassan will to be supportive of, and he will downplay Muslim extremist violence in Europe. He will do that. How about that? Or Asmongold's going to have a view of like Western culture in some regards is superior to the culture from some of these places, which to some extent is a true statement. Generally speaking, democratic regimes where the women have the right to go outside and not be, getting so many lashes if they sing a song about their fucking... You saw that story. Generally, acknowledging that, because we acknowledge something good for us. He's so right. He's so right about me being right. This is so accurate. He's so right. I think that more, are you validated enough? I think that more and more people are seeing this. Yeah, that's it. And wow. First time I've just seen an extra days. I mean, again, like it's a matter of spectrum. You're going to have disagreements with everybody, but with some people, you can see that these people are people that want the same general idea goal that you have. Right? So piracy is coming back. I think the reason why this is happening is the old quote from Gavin. Piracy is a service problem. The reason why piracy is down is because that acted as a market release for piracy, and the amount of money that you had to spend was minimal enough to where you could get the value out of it, and instead of spending the extra time and the potential risk with piracy, you could just simply act. I think Spotify is the best example now. How many of you guys have LimeWire and now you have Spotify? I know I do. So Spotify is an example of what's happening and working in an effective way. They are tuning mouths to feed, and now people are going back to piracy. That's what my opinion is. I'll watch the video and see what it is. The 2010s were the golden age of piracy. Bitcoin accounted for a third of all Internet Wow. LimeWire had more monthly users than Facebook, and the Pirate Bay was the only video store in town where you were sure to find what you were looking for. You get that 7 DVD release a day before. Technically, of course. The world was slowly switching from physical to digital media. Even people who weren't particularly tech-savvy realized that digital goods could be replaced chemically with practically zero marginal cost. Yep. At its peak, 95% of all music downloads were pirated because it was cheaper and, above all else, an easier way to fill up large digital libraries that were being made possible by cheap digital storage. Yep. But then, it just stopped. Since 2012, the internet has gotten faster, storage has gotten cheaper, and people have become more comfortable with computers, which should have just accelerated the growth trend. But it didn't. Since 2015, peer-to-peer file sharing has collapsed in popularity. And you might think you already know why. Streaming services like Spotify and Netflix were just a better, easier, and safer way to access content. And now, as these services have become markedly worse and simultaneously more expensive, piracy is making a comeback.
Yeah, that's the reason.
Pretty simple, right? The only problem is that that's not the whole story. Realistically, these companies knew this day would come. It was just really important that they could pretend to be right.
Yeah, I think
because like there are these websites that everybody would use and everybody would know, and just by the nature of how torrenting websites work and seeding and like all of that, the more people use the site, the better the site is. So whenever you cut off a few of the heads and then people went to a bunch of different sites, I think that made piracy less accessible for the lowest common denominator of internet users. I think that was another effect that it had.
For a lot of people, they decided it's time to cut back.
Yep.
Some of them are not using, and it's just wasting money.
That point doesn't necessarily relate. I don't want to tell people that it's a relationship.
That's right.
So that didn't happen. Really made piracy go away, and what's really bringing it back might sound simple, but there's actually a bit more to service. First and foremost, the majority of people actually would like to acquire their media legally as long as it was easy and not ridiculously expensive.
people want to have the media legally because it makes it easier to transfer and to use. And also there's risks with piracy. Like for example, you download something and it could have a virus in it or something like that. Or obviously you could get caught. Like realistically, it's probably a virus. So, and again, these are 1% probabilities, but like if you had a bag of M&Ms and one M&M was poisoned, would you want to eat a bag of M&Ms? Or would you want to have another bag, even if the other bag was like way, way more expensive?
These little people understand that it's possible to immediately develop a video. And the people involved in these projects do make it complicated, or else they're just not going to make them. Even people who feel like so to speak, know this better than anybody else. A survey coming out of Australia at the peak of online piracy found that people who pirated content were actually more likely to report it was available. And in finding that really aided the study, online piracy
Interesting content would imply interesting content. If people are going to see something, they're also probably part of the target audience automatically. Because they would be feeling it if they weren't part of the audience. I mean, it's one of those things where it's a common sense, but like stating it kind of helps put things into perspective.
This was because people who pirated content would just more likely to consume content later, and most of them would only make the trip to the Bay if they couldn't find what they were looking for more legitimately. So there were two things that changed after 2013. Sure, there were a few high-profile crackdowns on some of these sites, but even the regulators themselves knew they were just playing a game of whack-a-mole. One of the most downloaded files on the Pirate Bay was the Pirate Bay, a complete copy of the site with all the addresses that could be set up by basically anybody with some basic server hardware in the event that the authorities took down the original site. But then came along the streaming sites that, thanks to faster internet speeds, could let users watch content on demand without randomly files which could then be copied and shared illegally.
And the fact is that like Netflix is a better service than using pirate.
It is. It's a better service. You get a higher quality product on average. There's no watermarks. There's a lot it's a better service. It's the same as Spotify. Spotify entire thing was. I don't know. I mean, so you like the breadth of the content. But I don't think that you're right in terms of the quality of
because these options were just compared to piracy, and so cheap compared to buying songs that it just didn't really make sense to bother with anything else. Nowadays, that's clearly changed. There are dozens of streaming services that are each getting more and more expensive every year. The movies and shows that you watch are getting crazy.
This is insane. This is like we've gone full circle, and now we're all the way back to cable. Quality is worse. Well, again, like so quality. You're thinking about quality in terms of video quality. I'm thinking about quality in terms of aggregation. I'm thinking about quality in terms of being able to give recommendations. I'm thinking about quality in terms of usability. Quality in terms of finding files. All of these things, and again, everybody, almost everybody in here, we're all internet antis, right? Like we're on the internet all the time. We're talking on the internet constantly. We're doing stuff constantly. I think the value that an average person gets out of having a self-contained system, you really downplay it. I think Apple, Steve Jobs understood that.
On the roof of a building.
Vision.
Yep.
And that's why the iPod was so successful and blew everything outside of the water. Its usability is something that is actually a massive accessibility issue, and it cuts out so many people that you just never even think. About convenience, yeah.
Split up over different providers, the services themselves are getting worse by introducing ads and pushing less relevant content, and on top of all of that, it's just not that easy. Even individual TV shows have certain seasons split up over different streaming services, and the first step is
wait, what? The same show is on multiple streaming services with different seasons? Is this true? Oh my god!
Watch a movie these days, it's one of the best streaming services I've ever heard of before release of Gremlins, and if you're lucky, what streaming service plus what VPN will get you the movie you want to watch. If you're already going through all that effort, it gets really tempting to just replace streaming services with your port of choice, because in most cases, it will just be easier. So yeah, streaming services are cheap and easy. But then, they show you the movie is actually terrible. It's easy to
In fact, I'm probably going to play some GTA tonight.
There's a lot more to it than that. What almost all of them have what you're looking for.
And also, you can import your music as well.
So, really bothers which is particularly impressive when you remember that just 15 years ago, 95% of music was being down illegally. Because even a small share of something is better than most of the music being accessed for free.
Yeah, the thing is that like people are going to use people want to pay because they can't enforce it. That's the issue. It's that like nobody cares if you can steal it.
It might be the movie industry that's broken. The last because it was never the last. Why piracy is really I was sorting through some old receipts for tax season, trying to remember what I still needed to have for state, and of course, one of the important ones had contains all over it. The text is very important. That's why I started I just scanned the receipt and cleaned everything up. Fixed the States. I could finally read it. My records. Since then, it's time to be home too. I'm scanning or even something like It's fast, it works across all my devices, and the free version actually does. So you can fake document looks, and it makes your paperwork just a little less painful. Netflix is the most dominant leading TV streaming in the world. It has over 300 million paying subscribers, and unlike a lot of its competitors, it's actually profitable.
Oh, it's actually making money now? I thought it was losing money still.
But from the very first days of online streaming, they knew they would have piracy. Last year, it made $8.7 billion in net income which is extremely impressive. It still makes it hard to justify the valuation of
Wait, it only made $8 million, but the enterprise value is $500 billion? Who the fuck decided that? Oh, after 10,000 years, it's going to be $4 billion?
Holy shit.
After taxes, after a look at some financials. Last year, it made $8.7 billion in net income.
Okay, well, I guess he just said the wrong number.
Like, especially if it's not like an intellectual property company. Like, Netflix does its own shows. So, like, even with intellectual property, like, you're really looking at, like, a 7 to 15x multiplier from everything that I know about venture capital, period. And, like, even 7 is the ceiling, and 15 would be, like, some, like, weird AI thing that, like, nobody's ever thought about. So, I mean, 540 is insane.
At that rate, shareholders would need 57 years for their investment to pay off, which is not a reasonable bet for a company in an industry that has only been dominant for a decade.
57 years ago, last year would be look like this.
And another 57 years from now, it's crazy likely that we will still be watching movies with the current selection of streaming services. Now, most investors in this company aren't dumb. They know that Netflix can't make their money back with the current structure. What they are banking on is being able to offer a cheaper service that they can charge more for in order to fatten up those margins.
That's not about margins, by the way. Being nice and fat, that's a nice shirt to make it for men.
Anyway, cutting content, raising prices, and pushing strange features like mobile games into the app are not some surprise new rollout. They are part of the
It's the ads. I think the ads are what's really going to push people away from using apps. People, like, the reason why people went to apps in the first place is because of accessibility. You can only watch a TV show at 8 p.m. Also, there were a million commercials in it.
The company knew it would have to implement something to offer online streaming. It would just be a lot better if they could do it without competition. Now, on the expenses side, there is some good news. As technology improves, network infrastructure has become cheaper for the same capacity, which means the actual cost to stream videos to users is getting better every year. Netflix's cost of revenue, adjusted for inflation, has actually been stable since 2022, despite having almost 100 million new users in that time. Included in those costs are the
Wait, so their revenue stays the same, but they keep adding users? I don't think that's a good thing. That sounds like a bad thing.
aforementioned service and network infrastructure, but it also includes the cost of license to produce their own movies, TV shows, and games. Another big reason their costs have been improving is because licensing as much content as they used to, and that's for two reasons. The first was a business decision to cut down on a cost, especially for content that wasn't drawing in new users. The second reason is simply because they can't compete on as many titles anymore, because independent studios have made their own streaming services and want to keep their biggest IPs exclusive. So
This is the big reason. Is that, like, there are just too many other services, and you don't have a one-stop shop. Spotify is a one-stop shop. Netflix isn't anymore, and it's not even close.
Force users to either switch to their platform or offer two or more streaming services. Netflix is slowly producing its own titles, but that hasn't caught up to the content they are losing from licensing.
So then Netflix also has Netflix has a massive weakness that they don't have. Every IP they have to source themselves. Like Disney has its own endemic IPs, like Snow White or something like that. That, you know, maybe they can make something really bad, but it's enough IP that everybody understands. Netflix, like One Piece was a massive success. My dad watched this. He loved it. He thought this show was amazing. So, like, I mean, it was a big success. And even The Devil May Cry did well, right? But overall, Netflix has made good shows, but they have to source these shows themselves. And so they have to pay for licensing. Whereas like Paramount or HBO, they might have the IP for this. And think about the advantage Disney has whenever they already own the entire catalog of Marvel movies. That's like such a massive baseline advantage.
This means that Netflix doesn't care about piracy. They say they do, of course. Piracy is competition a lot more than to hurt them. If people can't find a movie or show on Netflix and then give up and pirate it, that didn't really cost Netflix any money. Because the doctors
call me. I don't count my chickens before they hatch. Let's get back to it.
A lot more than it's going to hurt them. If people can't find a movie or show on Netflix and then give up and pirate it, that didn't really cost Netflix any money. Because the vast majority of content out there wasn't theirs to lose, and they most likely didn't spend the money producing it. A 2023 paper in the Journal of Economic Behavior and Organization titled Pirate and Chill found that when movies moved off Netflix to another platform, piracy of that content increased by more than 50%. Now,
Netflix has such a massive first mover advantage. They're basically like the Twitch of like streaming platforms. Is that while other streaming platforms exist and they're successful, they don't have the same brand recognition and name recognition that Netflix does. Like everybody knows what Netflix is. So I think that's a
journal article.
Yeah.
But apart from that, it showed why Netflix hasn't been too concerned with piracy. And then now they said that in order for Netflix to be successful, we need to become movie studios faster than movie studios can become us. Piracy that disproportionately hurt legacy movie studios and their libraries of content was not something that Netflix would encourage. But behind closed doors, they certainly weren't too sad it was happening. Another way to think about this is that obviously Amazon isn't encouraging shoplifting, but it's a problem that hurts their competition far more than it hurts them.
LA POV, I guess. I mean, they're right. You know, yeah, obviously people like... What Netflix is saying is that they have a lot of like smaller shows that don't have like a huge amount of like they're not super well-known shows. So they're going to be less people pirating them. I think
Piracy has also been a handy little tool throughout the company's history. Back in 2013, it admitted to using data from online piracy sites to find out what was popular and therefore what was...
Hey, you could say this is unethical, but you can't say it's not going to be effective. That's a really good fucking idea. Yep, figure out what kind of shit people steal, and then don't sell that.
It's worth licensing.
Yeah.
Okay, so Netflix doesn't care about the rise of piracy. But what about the actual Hollywood studios? Well, they obviously do, and they crack down on IP theft with furious anger. But they are in a difficult situation. They could send piracy back to the Dark Ages by reconcentrating on content. That would probably...
They can't, because they're just going to file somewhere else. Like, it's always a game of whack-a-mole, and the more difficult that you make it for people to, like, consume the content, the more people will just simply take the easier route. I think that people will pay for the content if they can, but if it's annoying for them to pay for it, they'll just steal it.
Be Netflix, which a company like Disney would obviously not be willing to go along with after investing so much in their own service. If they keep competing, though, they are just going to make the experience worse for everybody and probably lose more ground to the high seas. Now, for these companies, this whole fight could not be happening at a worse time. There is a reason why music studios were able to play nice and make their content available just about anywhere while movie studios were fighting to the death. Music is simply much cheaper to produce, and there are far more sources of alternative revenue beyond just directly selling a song or an album. Artists don't make as much
point too. Yeah, you're right about that. Like having like other types of licensing, etc. And like this is something that like remember Matt Damon talked about this is that movies used to have like DVD sales that they could really pop off with. So like if a movie like a good example of this I think is I would say like maybe Dredd. Like they made a Judge Dredd movie in like 2012 or so. And if I remember right, the box office wasn't very good, but it did really well with DVD sales. So yeah, Grandma's Boy was an example.
right? Where like it sold a lot of DVDs, but like its initial like box office was kind of low. And yeah, by Blu-rays, yeah, a good ass movie, cult classic. Yeah, Idiocracy was a huge one that sold well on DVD. Yeah, that's a great example. Idiocracy is probably a better example than what I'm talking about, right? And so now you don't have that second ripple explosion wave effect. And I think that's also another reason why movies have to try even harder to like monetize. And I think that's why you see less avant-garde, risky movies. And the only time that you see a movie that takes a lot of risks is when it's a director or it has a cast that's like, you know, guaranteed to secure a certain amount of money in sales.
From streaming as they would from a physical album sale,
I watched
but they
it
can
on
make
DVD,
it off
yeah.
tours, merchandising,
Good
and
example.
other licensing deals. On the flip side, movies have largely been getting more expensive, while cinema attendance has never fully recovered from its dip during COVID. Ironically, one of the biggest releases of the past 5 years was from music studio with the cinema release of Taylor Swift's Eras Tour.
Oh god, somebody's gonna stop these white girls. Jesus Christ. Oh god. Man, that shit was huge. How did this happen?
In the past, poor box offices wouldn't matter as much, because mid-budget movies could make a lot of their money back through DVD sales.
Hey!
But obviously, that's not really a thing anymore.
Yeah.
So studios have put even more effort into pushing their streaming services to eventually make back the difference.
Yep.
It's a bold strategy, and there are hundreds of billions of dollars in market cap at stake. So executives really want to pretend that eventually it'll work out. But if it doesn't, there are some lessons to be learned from the music industry which didn't beat piracy. It just made it unnecessary. The first is that movies have simply become too expensive for the current market.
And this is another big issue.
Studios have recognized.
This is another big issue is that, like, video games are running into the same problem that movies and TV shows are running into, is that as production costs increase, they're increasing at a ratio and at a rate that doesn't match the amount of money that people are willing to spend. So whenever you have these video games that are costing $800 million to make, well, are you really getting $800 million of value? Well, in a lot of cases, the answer is no. So the problem is that these movies now are costing so much money. Like, maybe you need to rethink how you're making movies. You need to rethink how you're approaching this. And, like, also, you know, like, Robert Downey Jr. got paid, like, what, $80 million or something like that to play Dr. Doom? That's just not a sustainable business model. It's just not. Like, you can't spend that much money on movie stars and then think that you're going to make your money back. Like, and also, like, I'm not, like, I love Robert Downey Jr. I think he's a great actor. He's amazing. But it's just, this is not a good business decision. That's all. It's just not a good business decision. And you can't make your fucking money back. Yeah, paving the way for AI videos? Well, that's what's going to happen a lot. Check The Rock's salaries. I bet he makes a ton. Absolutely, it's unbalanced. Yeah.
Didn't we agree your first job was going to be free?
They're definitely getting that value. They're not corrupted by ideologist directors. I don't know. I feel
I got work to do. Well, good luck. The looks of it, you're gonna need it.
I think that's
Take a look, but don't expect me to hold your hand through it.
Surprisingly, very high quality, and it was a good movie. I didn't watch it, so I'm only speaking in secondhand. But the box office sales for the movie were below average. That was my. It sucked ass. Well, I don't know. Like, I mean, I maybe best movie since Endgame. Yeah. So a lot of people, it's still bombed. Yeah, exactly. Seems like you guys are a little bit more split on it than what I've seen popular opinion be. Okay, that's fair. But either way, a lot of these movies, like, they just don't really sell very well. And I think they're investing too much money into these movies in general. And I think also, you know, like, you go back and you think about a lot of the older movies, like, oh, fuck. Like, just Good Will Hunting, for example, right? Like, how much production value did you really need in that? You didn't need a huge, insane amount of production value. And I think that movies now, like, you don't have to have Michael Bay explosions and all of this crazy stuff happening. Yeah, that's another great example. Bro, Clerks.
You cheap ass son of a bitch. That's all you're gonna buy?
It's in black and fucking white. And they just went and made a movie and it was massively fucking successful. And so again, I think also they need to rethink the amount of money that they're spending on these movies. And you can go back, Memento by Nolan. I remember watching that movie making class, but I don't remember even like that entire class I spent simping for this girl. It didn't work. Anyway, so that's yeah. So I not even pay attention to that movie at all. And yeah, let's see here. Money makes it. Yeah, exactly right. Paranormal Activity 1. Yeah, and there's plenty of examples of this. Napoleon Dynamite, another great example. So they need to rethink how much money they're spending on movies in the same way that developers for video games need to rethink how much money they're spending on games. If you're investing this much money into something, you can't afford for it to lose, and you can't live, like, whenever you're dealing with entertainment products, you can't deal in absolutes. You can never guarantee something is going to be a success like this.
Guys, that people are only going to the movies for special occasion releases these days because it's expensive, the theater experience isn't that good anymore, and people can just wait a month and watch it for free on one of the streaming services that they were already paying for.
And it's also, a lot of the movies now are coming out on streaming services at the exact same time that they're coming out in movie theaters. And so it's even more the case. I'm trying to think, like, what movie, like, that's coming out would I want to watch in movie theater? I can't even think of anything. The last one, like, I mean, I would have in movie theaters. Like, maybe Superman? I don't really care about Superman. 28 years later, yeah, maybe that. Like, I remember I watched 28 Weeks Later in movie theaters in, like, 2009 or whenever it came out. So, like, maybe that. I don't know. I really have to think about it. Gladiator 2? No, I didn't like it. The 2, like, no, it didn't need to be that way. And Dune? Yeah, I guess, okay, you're right. Alright, so if they make part 3 of Dune, I'd probably watch that in movie theaters. That would be the next one.
Instead of making the whole thing cheaper and putting less of their eggs in a single basket, they have doubled down on producing mega blockbusters. Of the 20 most expensive movies ever made, 19 of them came out in the last 10 years after streaming was already mainstream. These figures also only count the production budget, not the marketing budget. And on the revenue side, the box office...
And by the way, marketing budget for these is sometimes like hundreds of millions of dollars. It's not like marketing is small. It's a huge component.
Include the share paid out to movie theaters. With generous estimates, these releases made their money back, and some in particular, like the Marvel's Snow White, Dial of Destiny, and the latest Mission Impossible movie, are shaping up to be catastrophic losses. So far, studios have been able to justify these flagship productions to their investors by talking about their IP value, which will only be extracted by limiting customers.
Yeah, Ironheart, bro. Like, how's that going? Not so good, huh?
To the streaming platforms, but that isn't really happening. Customers who join because they want to watch a single movie didn't tend to stay subscribed for very long compared to those who enjoy a deeper library of mid-budget movies or TV shows. I don't know about you, but I tend to take my subscription to whatever streaming service is hosting The Office this month. These huge productions also put more strain on the business as these losses have to be made up somewhere. And
I've always, like, I just have a subscription to... I have, like, Crunchyroll, and, oh, I got Netflix, and that's about it. Like, I don't really have a lot of these.
More often than not, prices whereas the worst overall service. Now, I would forgive you for not feeling too sorry for a Hollywood studio executive. So we are really in a no-win situation. The whole fight against the changing media landscape is the harder they push people towards the high seas.
Yep.
So anyway, now might be a good time to shamelessly plug that these videos are being made available. So if you prefer to watch it over there,
yeah, Spotify is doing what they need to do, what movies need to do. Because Spotify is like Steam. It prioritizes the user experience. And when you prioritize the user experience, you control the market. The moment that you start making content and developing your commercial product for the best interest of the people that are making money off of it, is the moment that your commercial product begins to
begins to fail because you've lost your actual
If you think it's just streaming services that have been getting so bad, learning how it works.
I think that was a really good video. Insight on it, especially with some of those graphics. I'm glad to see how money works. And I've watched these videos before. I don't know why I haven't seen it. But it's one of those things where, like, I think that we all know this is one of those realities, right? We all know this is, like, the reason. But it's good to actually see it.
Looks like war's back on the menu, boys. Today or tomorrow, we were supposed to be signing the Memorandum of Understanding with the Islamic Republic of Iran. Alright, we were supposed to make this whole big spiel, but that is not happening. It's actually just canceled. Hezbollah violated the ceasefire. Israel struck back. Iran is mad, I guess, that they can't let their terrorists commit acts of terror unscathed. And here I was, so happy that the terrorists promised to be good guys. Turns out you actually just have to kill them. Meanwhile, calls are rising up that after we're done with Iran, we should be liberating the United Kingdom from their authoritarian fascist oligarchs. The UK grooming gang files dropped, and all of the United Kingdom is silent about it. America's like, no, actually, that's kind of as you guys. We should liberate you people. I would argue that there's an even greater reason to liberate the United Kingdom than we fight with Iran altogether. I mean, I think a threat even closer to home. Locked in, boys and girls, crazy deep dive that happened over the last 24 hours. And that's why you're with me, random cartoon blue guy on the internet, to try to make sense out of this psyop-infested hellscape that we like to call the internet. Subscribe and let's get rolling. The Donald can be seen here with a very unhappy Marco Rubio behind him signing the Memorandum of Understanding. All right, for those of you unaware, and you would be unaware if you read literally any media source everywhere that's calling this a peace deal, this is not a peace deal. This is a 60-day extended ceasefire where they decide on what's happening after that. Either Iran unconditionally surrenders or Iran gets bombed back to the Stone Age. Right, this has always been what this has been about. The critics of this deal is just basically, actually, we can't trust these guys anyway. We should keep bombing them now. I personally am more on that side in regards to dealing with terrorists. I actually don't want to give them anything. I don't think that they should be getting literally
Hang on,
anything
I gotta
out of the
pee
deal.
right quick.
Completely and utterly, militarily obliterated them, and if they refuse to succumb to literally everything, we'll just have to kill them. That's more my stance when it comes to warfare in general, especially when you're dealing with an Islamic terrorist death cult. But I have faith that the orange guy has more foresight than we give him credit for. I hate seeing the backstabbers immediately turning on him because they don't like this deal or whatever. Let him cook. Let him cook. And there's a lot of reason to believe that there is cooking happening. So, the Donald says these fools who think haven't been tough enough on Iran, well, the stock market hit a record high, oil prices are tumbling down, and are either jealous, bad people, or stupid to make America great again. The truth is, he's right. Now, I've said this from the very beginning, and I remember, I'm going to still say it today. A lot of people are upset at me for saying it. I'm actually America first. I believe that America should be operating in the best interests of America. If America neutralizes the threat of Iran, and our economy is literally in the best place that it's been in like 5 years, that sounds pretty fucking awesome to me. I pray that the people of Iran are able to rise up and overthrow their Islamic Republic, and I'd be more than happy to do some charity work, right, helping on the sidelines bomb some of these motherfucking pedophile goat rapists. I would do that. I support that. Don't get me wrong. But in regards to just being there for 10 years, troops foots on the ground, and the regime change, war, and sit there and lose thousands of soldiers, actually, no thank you. I just want to eviscerate them well enough that we never actually have to waste our time with these retards again, alright? We bomb them back to the fucking Stone Ages and we move on. That's my stance. I actually believe in winning wars. A lot of people don't believe in that. I do. I think that winning wars is awesome, actually. And then the media is spinning that we're giving them $300 billion. So the Donald made another post. There is no $300 billion payment to Iran by the U.S. That's fake news. All there is for the U.S. is success, lower oil prices, and victory. Check out the stock market. Democrat propaganda at play. And this is true, by the way. When you actually read the memorandum of understanding with this $300 billion, it's not that we are giving them $300 billion. We are just going to be lifting $300 billion worth of sanctions that countries can invest in Iran. All right, that is not our tax dollars funding these people, obviously. To be fair, I actually don't love this in general. I think we should be killing terrorists. But anyway, again, let the Donald cook. All right, oil is flowing. Iran can never have a nuclear weapon. The world will be safe. The stock markets are roaring. Jobs are at records. Prices are dropping. Affordability. Our country is strong, safe, and respected like never before. You're welcome. Now, obviously, a lot of the Arab Gulf countries are unhappy with this. All right, the United Arab Emirates was just released a statement basically saying, "No, you should fucking kill them. They've been killing us." Israel's obviously not happy with this, because they've been funding terrorism against Israel for years, as well as bombing them. And the Iranian people are not very happy with this because they would like to overthrow that Islamic regime. But we will get to all of those points as we go on. I have to build the story up for you a little bit. Lock in, okay? And don't fucking crash out. So this is Moscow, by the way. Ukraine just bombed the fuck out of them. This is an oil cap flying off of an oil tanker, and that's insane. Now, the Donald had a really interesting thing to say over here. Actually, if you go watch my previous video on this situation, you'll be like, what did he call it? Yes, I did actually.
Some element to this where you send the vice president. If it works out, great, you look like a genius for sending him. And if it doesn't work out, it's the vice president.
I like that idea, shoot. Well, this way, if it works out, I'm going to take the credit. If it doesn't work out, I'm blaming JD. You better be careful, JD. He's going to turn his plane around and get the hell out of here. Yeah, I like that idea. I think it's a good idea.
And notice, while he's making all these jokes and all these things, Rubio does not fucking twitch. He is standing there, resolute. And, again, we are seeing a big divide happening, and it is really, really fascinating. See, I think Trump is the kind of guy that he's like, you know what, JD camp wants a peace deal, he wants it to end, whatever. And Rubio camp is like, we want to obliterate these terrorists. All right, and I think Trump is actually playing both sides. He's giving JD the ability to actually make a peace deal right now. We'll see how it goes with the JD plan. You have 60 days to figure this shit out, and it's not satisfactory. We go the Rubio route, and we blow them to hell. Which is why, as this is happening, JD Vance is the face of the deal. People who goes on Fox News to basically say, yeah, Iran was dangerous in multiple ways. All right, they were dangerous with cyber attacks, with planned assassination, stuff like that. We all know that they're dangerous. We all know that the threat was real. Iran, by the way, those terrorists, they executed 2 men on Tuesday after convicting them over involvement in anti-government protests. Alright, so they protested, so they executed them, so, they're still being retarded, evil, terrorist fucks. Iran actually made Hezbollah when assets are unfrozen. Alright, now this is actually a really big deal because part of this memorandum of understanding, this inevitable deal that Trump is laying out, is that Iran will no longer be able to fund proxy armies, alright, which is exactly what Hezbollah is. So Iran is already, super confident that the peace deal is going through, they're getting what they want, and they're making really, really brave promises that they're going to be funding Hezbollah after the war ends. Again, understand that I think Trump is playing the long game here. But anywho, you will see. That Israel is blowing up Hezbollah terrorists in Lebanon. Hezbollah 240 of our Marines. They've tortured the Christian population of Lebanon. They have caused the deaths of 650,000 people in Syria. They've been bombing Israeli civilians for 40 years, funded by Iran. Actually, blowing them up is fucking awesome. Now, to be clear, Israel was never at the negotiating table. They didn't even see the memorandum of understanding before anyone else in the world did. What does Hezbollah have to do with Iran? Oh, they're literally a terrorist proxy army of Iran that's doing shit over there? Oh, really interesting. You're admitting that now. So I don't see any reason why Israel should stop bombing the fuck out of them. Now, the interesting thing is, though, we give Israel a lot of money.
And I would really like that to stop. I'm against all foreign aid, in case you are new here. I don't like that we're giving NATO money. I don't like that we're giving Ukraine money. I don't like that we're giving Israel money. I don't want to be giving money to anyone. And I think it would be awesome if we stopped doing that. But as long as we're doing that, we do expect some level of restraint. And we're actually getting it. Israel wants to be bombing Beirut right now, capital of Lebanon, and they're not. And the reason why they're not is because that seems to be a red line for Iran's peace deal. So they are, to some extent, healing when we say heal. But to some extent, yeah, they should be fucking blowing up terrorists, actually. That's awesome. Reporter asked President Trump whether the United States would defend and assist Israel if it decides to carry out its own strikes against Iran. And Trump responded, if it was provoked, absolutely. All right, so to everyone that actually believes that, oh my God, Trump lost the war, he's trying to end it, because that seems to be a massive narrative across social media right now, because every Muslim on the fucking planet is liking the retard tweets. You have to understand how this works. Right? The new internet is not like we have given the third world access to the internet, and now there are 2 billion monkeys leaving lights on posts that we have to sift through. Use your own critical thinking skills. We got exactly what we wanted out of this war, essentially, already. We blew up their nuclear sites. We fucking obliterated their entire military and navy and air force. They do not pose a threat to us at this moment. The only thing that we're trying to get out of this quote-unquote deal is the fact that they have a threat. An absolute crushing defeat that they faced. And everyone says that the war is retarded to the point that Trump is like, no, if Israel actually attacks them, well, of course we'll help. Because fuck these terrorists. Now, Vance has, interestingly enough, become the face of the deal, as I've mentioned earlier, and this is all part of the plan. All right, so and Vance actually was basically blasting Israel, our ally that fought shoulder to shoulder with us against the Islamic Republic of Iran, and how they're blasted by JD. Now, there's 3 reasons why this is happening, in my opinion. 1, JD's he wants to win presidency in 2028, and therefore he wants to get the Tucker Carlson on. In fact, he's friends with Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson. He is literally besties with files, but are completely silent about the Islamic rape gangs in the UK.
Fucker. Are you kidding me?
A massive facade and a huge trick that the Trump administration is playing on Iran. I think the Trump administration makes it look like, Israel, they're such bastards doing fucking Jews, bombing terrorists. Right? They're doing their absolute best to make it look like they're just really sick of Israel. I think to provoke a deal and we bomb the fuck out of them. We're going to convince Iran, lull them into a false sense of security that actually we don't like Israel anymore. Alright, remember, all these guys. Trump's daughter is literally Jewish. Trump likes Israel so much to the point that people think that Israel is controlling Trump. You really think that this is happening just because a couple of incompetent nitwits are hurling insults at each other? Now, I think so those are the 2 major things that are happening. I think you have fans trying to appeal to the podcast Stan audience, and then you have the Trump administration in general. A rift is forming there when I don't really think it is.
What I will say, and this does bother me, is that we've seen people within the past deal, and in some ways very personally attack the President of the United States.
Oh, why?
And I guess my message to them would be twofold. Number one, Donald J. Trump is the only head of state in the entire world who is sympathetic to the nation of Israel at this moment in time. Of the world's superpower. If I was in the cabinet, I would be the only powerful ally anywhere left in the entire world.
Obviously, there are several countries that are super, dude, I think our countries like wild degree, not gonna lie. Same with India and Hungary. Like these are countries that very much like Israel. So, but that's one thing. But the more important idea here is, I think he's completely right. actually, you should not be shitting on Donald Trump and America, a country that has objectively helped you so much over the years, and you should not be shitting on us because you don't like a decision that was made by the president. All right, I'm sorry, man. I think he's actually kind of right here, and I think this is actually pretty good advice. Now, the interesting thing, though, is that he specifically stated, if I was in the cabinet of the Israeli government, I might not be personal attacks to
Donald J. Trump and attacked the deal, and in some ways very personally attacked the President of the United States.
Now, the interesting thing about this is it didn't happen. This is actually not true. I also looked through. This guy looked through it. I also looked through it. I did not find any Israeli cabinet members personally attacking President Trump. None of them. Yeah, some of them were critical about the deal, which like what's wrong with that? I did not find any instances of this. Right, Ben-Gvir, he's like the radical guy. Says Israel is not a banana republic. The agreement does not bind them. Okay, that doesn't have anything to do with a personal attack on President Trump. Bezalel Smotrich called the deal bad for Israel and for the entire free world. All right, but that is not a personal attack. Defense Minister Israel Katz said the Israeli forces would remain in southern Lebanon, Syria, and Gaza. I also couldn't find any instances of personal attacks. All right, so it is definitely weird. It's weird watching this happen. The next thing, and this is also wild, is them criticizing the Israeli attack on Beirut.
Israel has the right to defend itself, but fundamentally, the Israelis, just like everybody else, have to respect this peace process. That is fundamentally good for them and good for the entire region. But the president,
but they don't think so, obviously.
Sometimes is that we see a major breakthrough in the agreement, and then all of a sudden there's a major explosion that goes off in a civilian population center in Beirut. And
right, so this is literally Tucker Carlson points. Tucker Carlson said, every time we get close to a peace deal, Israel attacks Beirut. And it's like, you do realize this is after Hezbollah strikes. This is after Hezbollah directly attacked. Also, he states that it was in a civilian population center in Beirut. It literally
hats in there too, huh? I can get rid of these feathers.
It was literally a terrorist stronghold. All right, this is a video showing the aftermath of the strike. It was targeted at an apartment. All right, the building itself is intact. It owned one apartment in the entire apartment complex that was specifically housing Hezbollah terrorists. Right? No civilians were killed in this attack, actually. It was only Hezbollah terrorists. So it is wild watching these talking points.
A lot of people
look at this guy. You know, fat folk. There.
Killed in Afghanistan, in Syria, over the course of our unfortunate and terrible war there. And arguably, those fuckers that we killed didn't actually. Hezbollah poses a direct threat to Israel, and Israel killing terrorists is awesome. Actually, I stand by that. I think us killing terrorists is awesome. Israel killing terrorists is awesome. It's a pretty basic opinion that I have. All right, interesting.
That we've asked for closer coordination so that we ensure it doesn't happen.
And we got it. Israel has not attacked Beirut since then because Trump basically told them not to, and they don't. Because actually, we control Israel. It's really not the other way around. And it's very obvious if you've been watching the way this has been going. I mean, Israel obviously is not happy with this memorandum of understanding. And we did it anyway, actually. Right? This completely debunks every narrative that the dipshits have been spouting for months now. They said we were going to lose tens of thousands of soldiers in a 10-year-long war, boots on the ground, regime change, we're controlled by Israel. They were literally wrong on every front, it seems. Actually, it's pretty wild. The next thing that I noticed, interestingly enough, is that Russian state television was rebroadcasting specifically clips of Vance shitting on Israel. Alright, this is obviously to sow division. Russian state media has been pretty consistent at platforming and showing Candace Owens and Marjorie Trader Green and Tucker Carlson and all these fucking retards that are basically shredding the right-wing coalition in the United States. And it's pretty interesting that they specifically decide, oh, we're going to show specifically, Vance right in America. And I think destroy the left is the most important thing that the right wing needs to actually do. Pretty wild, actually. Pretty wild indeed. All right, now, Cenk Uygur, obviously, big fan of J.D. Vance now because J.D. Vance is criticizing Israel. It really goes to show that the foreign psyop is very simple, actually. The foreign psyop is actually just fighting their ethnic, tribal bullshit wars against the West, and they don't actually give a shit about anything. The reason why all the Islamists support the West is because the left is destroying the West. Alright, so now when you have a right-wing guy, saying something about Israel, it's like, yes, that's That's our guy all of a sudden. It is pretty wild watching it happen. Yeah, James Younger, pro-socialism, anti-Christianity. He stated that Christianity is a fascist religion. Okay? And this dude is a big fan of J.D. Vance. Interesting how that happened. Alright? J.D. stated this about the Pope.
What did he say? I'll give you the He said, I'll give the short version. He says he welcomes the agreement between the U.S. and Iran. He says the hopes it will help strengthen mutual trust, security, and stability in the Middle East. He also hopes that it's truly a solution to the war, if the war is really over. What do you say to the Pope, sir? My response to that is, praise Jesus. I'm glad that the Pope has positive things to say about our MOU. I think that the Pope is fundamentally accurate, and it's going to be good for the entire world. But we got to keep working at it to make sure that the Iranians honor the commitments that they made. And then, yeah.
So anyway, W Pope, I guess. But interestingly enough, the same day as that happened, the Pope blanket remigration. All right, it's pretty wild, bro. Dude is literally a globalist. He's doing his own for as many retards from the third world into our countries. And it's absolutely wild watching this happen. Like, don't you think it's weird that all of the libtards and all of the globalists are all really, really happy with the deal and hope that it's the grand finale of everything? Doesn't that make you believe that? Anyway, the VP had this today.
I would say to anybody, any of the critics, is number one, have a little bit of faith in the President of the United States. The idea that he is going to strike a deal that's been bad for the American people, it's preposterous. He is the person who's had the courage to fundamentally transform our relationship with Iran and with a lot of other countries over the last year.
I hate how he says Iran.
He believes in
Iran. He's so Midwestern. Iran.
Iranians don't comply. We still have every single tool and point of leverage that we have today. That's the most
There it is. There it is. Understand the game. There's a massive psychological operation going on, and it's very, very obvious. All right, we are giving them a road to peace and the option to take it. And if they don't, morally, we are gonna bomb the fuck out of them. It's gonna be awesome. All right, I understand where we are standing right now.
Have a little faith in the president's ability, given that he got us this far, to take us the final round. The second thing that I would say is what I've read or heard that is just fundamentally untrue. It is a memorandum of understanding, fundamentally a principle that yes, the Straits of Hormuz are going to be
God damn, everybody's dropping everything.
Actually do it. It's about conduct. It's about rewarding good conduct and punishing bad conduct, which in some ways is what we've been doing for the last 3 months.
We are your daddy, Iran. Get over it. We own you now. All right? And we're making it very clear that we are going to do exactly what we did, again, the moment we think you're being retarded.
Vis-a-vis that country anyway. So many of the criticisms, I saw Lindsey Graham came out with a positive statement after expressing some concerns. I think that when people get to understand not just the agreement, but our negotiating posture as a country, they will realize this is an excellent thing.
I don't think so.
That's part of our job.
I think it's got to be like a week old.
Means for Americans, how it's going to make all of us.
Yeah, 3 days ago.
That's why I'm here talking to everybody.
It automatically starts another video. Here, this one started an hour ago. So and there's kind of no rhyme or reason to it. But then again, everything I watch on YouTube. So my algorithm is probably pretty fucking weird.
But my favorite part about this is he tweeted it a day before Keir Starmer announced it. All right, a lot of people don't understand the level of balls that was. No one knew he was leaving. There was whispers. People were wondering. In my previous video, I said that there were early reports that potentially he was going to resign. You know, even Piers Morgan breaking President Trump confirms Piers resigning before Starmer confirmed it himself. This is truly the final fucking humiliation to this retard. Bro oversaw the rape of 250,000 British children. White. It makes it so awkward that even you policing Pakistani Muslims aren't visiting. Please have the decency to not get caught. report when you gang rape children, please. We will ban children from social media so that they cannot report if they are getting raped by Muslims. It's very important. So while he's doing all that, the Donald decided to drop this dude. That's saying that, yes, he is in fact resigning. It's actually over to this retard. Yeah, breaking. Keir Starmer officially resigned. Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. This just happened right now. About an hour before this video. Which is insane. Now, UK Prime Minister had a few things to say. He gave like a little 7-minute monologue, being a bitch, crying there like a pussy. And I'll show you a couple of good moments.
The question my party is asking now is whether I am best placed to lead us into the next general election. I have heard the answer of my parliamentary party to that, and I accept that answer with good grace.
With good grace, my entire party said, hey, you fucking suck, retard. You have to go. We have to replace you or we have no chance of winning the great general election. So we're just gonna fucking deport your ass back into the commoner vote. That's right, fucking communist.
Every decision I've taken has been about putting the country I love first.
That's right. Every Muslim gang that raped a kid, Keir Starmer supported it, actually, I think. I think Keir Starmer loves it when that happens, because it helps secure the communist utopia. When he says puts his country first, like, a lot of people are wondering right now, is he referring to the UK? Because, I mean, literally 250,000 white girls were raped by Pakistani Muslims. Maybe he's referring to Pakistan. Maybe that's the country he's referring to. Or Ukraine. He gave billions of dollars to Ukraine while British people are starving in the streets. So, maybe that's what he's referring to. Lots of possibilities here.
That is why I will resign as leader of the nation.
We're Stalin, Dick Down,
I will ask the National Executive Committee
the Trump tweet was better.
To set out a timetable with nominations opening on the 9th of July.
Man, that sucks.
By the summer week.
Man, that sucks for you, man. It must really suck that, all these Muslims were raping British kids. Think of the backlash it would have on peaceful politicians that are trying to stay in power when it gets exposed. Of course, Keir Starmer also cried because obviously he was a giant walking thanks to Keir Starmer, the blue whale is the second biggest pussy on the planet.
And when I leave the biggest job in the country, I shall spend more time on the most important job. Being the best husband I can to my fantastic wife, Vic, who has been a rock by my side on good times and bad.
Yeah.
And being the best dad I can to my beautiful children.
This is like ultimate humiliation. I've never seen humiliation this bad. Bro needs to go out there, talk about how my own party thinks I fucking suck for the country I have to leave. Holy shit.
Who are my pride and my joy. Thank you very much.
Damn. Bro, go. And the cheering! The applause! They're congratulating his decision on getting them. Fuck out of there! Oh, yeah! Yeah, man, we toppled this fucker. Every one of us little people that contributed to shitting on this guy was important. Now, I want to make this clear. I will never forget that I had a video taken down from YouTube because I called this man the F-slur. Okay, I called him the F-slur. I'm not going to say it because he fucking hates me right now and just suppressing my entire channel. Definitely share my videos. I got a video taken down because I offended the British government. I'm not exaggerating. It's a real thing that happened. Fuck this guy. Holy shit. This flagrant homosexual looking ass is gone. Trudeau responded appropriately. Starmer resigns. He has been a truly disgraceful prime minister. I do not believe him to be a good man or a patriot. He has deliberately and rapidly accelerated the destruction of our bridge and of our home. History will not remember him kindly, nor should it. I sat in Parliament, looked him in the eye, listening to him attempting to justify his decision to block a national inquiry into the mass rape of young British girls. I will never forgive him for that and so much else. What comes next, I do not know. Whatever that is, Restore Britain will be ready to offer the British people a democratic route out, a better way, the only way. But Starmer is gone, and that is a good thing. Enjoy it. Just a fucking base tweet, all in all. None of this like, he was a good man, he's doing what's right. No, he fucking sucked. He raped our country. He was awful. Fuck him. Face that shit. Now, for a slightly personal anecdote, I was talking to my grandfather the other day. He's 100 years old. He's a Holocaust survivor. He's the cutest man in the world. All right, and I told him the story of the British rape gangs. And I said that, that there's, obviously, you would not hear of this. I said to my grandfather, he just reads, like, the newspaper and stuff. He has no idea about Twitter, right? So I explained to him that, there were these Pakistani grooming gangs that they raped 250,000 British girls in England. And my grandfather said to me with tears in his eyes, "You're lying. I don't believe you. Churchill's England was never these people." And I told him it's not Churchill's England anymore. And he was looking at me distraught. Right? And I explained to him that there's
Listen, you think you're pretty smart now, don't you? Here's your pay, Einstein.
This guy, Rupert Lowe, they're calling him like a far-right Nazi. And my grandfather, again, a Holocaust survivor, he said, Nazis are people stopping grooming gangs these days? He's just like disgusted. But this guy's entire family was killed by actual Nazis.
I got some shit work. Don't just stand there with your thumb up your ass. You gonna buy some food or just stand there like a goddamn idiot?
Donald has been cooking the UK, the BBC, the British Broadcasting Corps, a nice little dead platform that promotes all sorts of terrorist propaganda every day.
All that gawking at goods and that's all you buy?
Even the ones that put AI in my mouth, the ones that gave me, had me saying a statement that they now admit was not true, the ones that put terrible words in my mouth and then had to admit that it was fake, the ones that are being sued now for $5 million and don't know what to do, you with BBC, they're another fake out.
Oh, God, it was fucking murderous. Mr. President, I had a question for you. BBC, 30-minute slaughter. Based, by the way. We should be humiliating these guys. In fact, BBC, every day, they publish a new article that's even worse than that. Israelis trying to kill 6 people in Gaza, including Al Jazeera cameraman.
Trader Rekt is closing shortly. Finish your damn business or come back tomorrow. If you're still alive.
This fucker, this retard who's out of grip holding fucking assault rifles and shit, yeah, he also had a camera. Right? Just because he had a side hustle, it doesn't mean that these people shouldn't be fucking killed. And again, BBC is literally, this is an article from today. Now, police, this is shocking. Every day, you have to look at what happens in England and just literally slap yourself to make sure that you're awake. Police guided a grieving mother to soften her words after her daughter was stabbed 23 times by a Sudanese Muslim asylum seeker fearing another Southport. That's right. So, Sudanese Muslim, barbarian, actual savage animal, alright, decides that he's gonna stab someone 23 times. The little girl stabbed her 23 times. Alright, murdered her. And then guess what? The police show up to the mother whose daughter was murdered by this asylum seeker and says to the mother, "Don't say anything publicly, because this might cause Islamophobia." Right, you have to understand the level of stuff we're doing. Right, and again, so that's what they do when a girl gets stabbed 23 times by a retarded cannibal. Okay, but you know what they say when they see some girls in public? That's right. Go ahead. Beat the shit out of random women in public, but fucking retarded cannibals eat people's daughters and they tell them they have to be peaceful. Insane. Now, again, defending a Muslim child gang rapist is precisely what I'd expect from you, Mehdi. This is coming from Mehdi Hassan, the guy who, by the way, said it's a made-up number. It's a made-up number! There are no Muslim rape gangs. The numbers are made up. They know it's a reality. Of course, Muslims are great people, unlike the animals that are obvious. Alright, so then Mehdi Hassan said, "They've never sent a rapist in my life." You literally worship a rapist. The holiest man in your religion is a rapist pedophile. Muhammad, police be upon him, is a fucking rapist pedophile. Alright, he is a mass rapist, slaver, sex slaver, pedophile. Are even serious. Also, in the same context as presenting gigantic swaths of Islamic grooming gangs. Right? So you have to understand what defending Muslim grooming gangs, worshiping a rapist pedophile, criticizing Donald Trump. Are we on the same page? And now, Bro managed to find some white pedophile and be like, "Hey, you want to tweet about this guy?" Anything to obfuscate from the actual situation here or something. We're literally doing this all over the time. Did Elon Musk talk about side A? I know Elon Musk is stirring up a lot of hatred towards side B. Both sides do it. There's literally no difference yet, many such cases. Now, Hassan finally addressed the rape gangs after so much pushback, but he done it by basically running defense for Pakistani Muslims. Before getting too deep into the chaos, free cash was promised to me 3,000 years ago. One thing I recently added to my daily routine is using free cash for a few minutes here and there. If I'm gonna play games as a time sponge, I might as well make some money out of it. Free cash is a fun and easy way to earn real money by using simple tasks already on your phone. Play games, complete surveys, do simple tasks, and turn your bathroom break into an investment. Enjoy playing all dragons on free cash. I play a strategy-based building game. You get instant payouts to a really easy process through PayPal, Amazon, or Visa. There's over $250 million paid out to over 50 million users worldwide. It's a win-win. They get someone to test their games and fill out their surveys, and you get paid. Use the QR code on the screen or click the link in the description to sign up and get a $10 bonus today. Now, back to the case. Every individual sign up literally supports the channel. So if you click the link in the description and do the thing, that would be very appreciated.
Hello, Muslim rape gang apologists.
True! Truth news! Got it! Yes! No
I swear to God, these guys are like, they're bots, right? They were in
Rape of children by Muslims. It's pretty incredible. The lengths you need to go to be defending Islam.
And then immediately they're off the fucking race. Very normal thing to type on a Twitch chat on a Sunday evening. Yeah. Go ahead, speak out against those things. I have, and will continue to do so. You know, the Epstein, pedophilia.
Epstein is a rapist, actually. So brave! Wow, look at this guy.
Your rape gang, for example,
Wow, he's so brave.
is one of the primary rape gangs I speak out against.
Wow. You basically spend the rest of the video talking about Epstein. Look, you cannot even make this shit up. These people actually fucking suck tremendously. It's insane. It's like, hey, did you know that 250,000 fucking white women were raped by local rape gangs? And he's like, oh, I'll talk about rape gangs. For example, Jeffrey Epstein was a rape gang. Should we, like, be serious for, like, a fucking second here? Now, just to be clear, first of all, you're allowed to care about multiple rape gangs, but that's one. And two, Jeffrey Epstein wasn't even remotely as much of a travesty as the Islamic grooming gangs in England. It's actually I know, it's shocking. I love saying these things, but look, I'm not minimizing it. Jeffrey Epstein's a monster. Obviously, there were probably like a dozen victims and stuff. That's horrible. There were 250,000 victims, actually. 250,000 victims to this shit. Now, again, like, we're doing this meme every time. It's like, Mediasan freaks out. It's like, a Muslim was stabbed the same week Rupert Lowe exposed a million rapist, pedophile Muslims. Right, again, you have to understand what we're dealing with here. This is the retard mind of the fucking Muslim extremists that actually support Muslims raping you. I hope you understand. Again, they want you to get raped by a Muslim. That's the goal. And once you put it into that perspective, you actually start to understand what's going on. So the same week that Rupert Lowe put out his bullshit rape gang report, falsely saying Muslims raping the same week Elon Musk amplified it, now people get stabbed. I don't think they did get stabbed, mate. But aside from that, I love how it's like, man, if you expose Muslim pedophiles, think about the backlash on peaceful Muslims. Think about the backlash on peaceful Muslims that will have. And it's like, every single time, it's like, right-wingers are the real racists, and they get angry with grooming gangs to molest little kids. Yeah! Yeah! Right-wingers are the real racists, because they don't like retarded cannibals eating children. Now, Sneeko, of course, is the same sentiment as Hassan. You'll notice, Sneeko, far right, whatever label you want to put on them. Interestingly enough, they have the same exact opinion. So when it's Pakistanis, it's a Muslim grooming gang. But when it's Epstein Island, why is it not called a Jewish conspiracy? Every Jew criticized Epstein. Epstein was not a religious Jew at all. Did you ever see him with a yarmulke? He didn't observe the Sabbath, alright? Obviously, he was not religious in any way. He was just a really fucked up pedophile. Absolute monstrous pedophile. When drugs are smuggled in the border, why is it just a Mexican cartel instead of a Catholic? I'll explain to you, actually. Because nowhere is the tenets of Judaism or Catholicism does anything to propagandize people to rape kids, actually. That doesn't exist anywhere in Catholicism or Judaism. Every Jew and every Christian I know condemn the Muslim, Epstein Island, and condemn the drug traffickers, as well as the pedophilia in the Catholic Church that's uncovered every once in a while. All right? Every single Catholic I know condemns it, openly and immediately with sadness in their heart. Every Jew condemns Epstein, who also, by the way, did not organize his sex ring on Jewish ethnicity. The Pakistani rape gangs were gigantic communities of thousands of people that all knew this was happening, all worked together to cover it up, and it actually does follow the tenets of Islam. Taking non-Muslims as sex slaves is actually very fucking common in your literature. And you want to know the craziest thing? I, personally, have never ever seen a Jew or a Christian do this LARP when a Jew or a Christian gets exposed to being a pedophile. I, in fact, have not seen a single movie condemn the rape. In fact, deny their existence. Cenk Uygur, Mehdi Hassan, Hassan Piker, and Sneeko are all literally making believe it's not a real thing. All right, they are ignoring its reality. I don't know a single Catholic that says that there's no such thing. There was never pedophilia in the Catholic Church. That never happened. I have never seen a Jew say, well, Jeffrey Epstein wasn't really a pedophile. I've never seen that ever, because it's deplorable, obviously. But for some reason, every single Muslim guy on the internet is running defense for the Pakistani grooming gangs. Have you noticed? Isn't that weird? Isn't that weird? We're all moderate Muslims to call out the extreme Muslims. That's so weird. Lol, pedos talking about Epstein! It's Epstein guys! They are still literally marrying children in almost every single Muslim country right now. 2.3 million young girls are married to adult men in Iran as we speak. Houthis are still marrying 8 and 9-year-olds. In Afghanistan, people are still selling their 9-year-old daughters to their 50-year-old cousins. Epstein is rookie numbers compared to fucking Yemen. Approximately 20 million girls and women in Yemen, 18 as of recent estimates. Again, hello, and one of the crazy ones, every single Muslim kind of supports it. Ask yourself, well, all these influencers that make like these really cool videos on how Jeffrey Epstein was a monster and stuff, and he was a monster, and I made a bunch of videos on it too. Alright, ask me why. Why did none of them cover these Muslim grooming gangs? Is it because it's not socially acceptable? I didn't see any CoffeeZilla video or Penguin Zero video or some ordinary gamers video on the fucking gigantic Muslim grooming gang operation in England. I wonder why. Oh, but Epstein, that's really safe because he has emails with Trump and he's an elite and stuff. Alright, interesting. So Sneeko keeps going. It's pretty awesome.
Jeffrey Epstein was not Muslim. The biggest
true. He was friends with Muslims. He literally had pieces of the Kaaba cloth that he bought. He was friends with a lot of Muslims, actually.
Court grooming gang in modern history of black.
No, actually, the worst grooming gangs in modern history were obviously the Islamic grooming gangs throughout all of the Middle East. They still exist to this day, as well as the ones that are being imported to Europe and America. It is, in fact, infinitely worse than Epstein, and you have to be retarded if you don't believe it. Then you get the fucking retard Avengers in the comments. Yes, the rape gang hoax is a Zionist, Goyslav Zionist psyop. Wow! It's a Zionist hoax! Yes! The 250,000 girls raped by Muslims is actually a Zionist scam. Accounts based in Brazil. Anti-communism is Goyslav, right? It's just pure communist, right? You have to understand what we're doing here. The Jews invented communism, so they're bad. The Jews invented capitalism, so they're bad. It's pretty interesting stuff, honestly, I have to say. Alright, now, one of the biggest twists I've ever seen in my entire life is there's this guy, Rabbi Yosef Mizrahi. He's been going viral lately, like there are memes of him basically crashing out on everybody. So Sneeko begged this rabbi to do a stream with him. The rabbi turned him down. And then the rabbi started calling him a brown clown. What? No, this isn't real.
Now, many Muslims are not very interested in Judaism. Right? There's one Muslim clown, someone converted to Islam, supposedly somebody on social media has millions of views, millions of followers, likes to laugh a lot, to catch parts from the lecture and laugh under the picture, you know how they are, it's a new style now.
Fucking rabbis out there slaughtering Sneeko on the timeline.
And you have many other chimpanzees out there in the jungle, and they laugh with it. But we have a saying in Torah, צוחק מי שצוחק אחרון. Doesn't matter who laughs now, laugh all you want. We will see how you laugh when you stand in front of Hashem for your tribe. Good luck trying to laugh there. Well, they will show you your stupid laugh, making laugh at things. By the way, you should know that a lot of the listeners over there became fascinated with my lecture. I'm beginning to get more and more emails every day. I'm Muslim, I found you here, I found you by Tucker, I found you by Candy, I found you by the snake. And we're all of them have a name. Snake. It's Snako, Sneeko. 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 Adam and Eve and the Sneeko. So,
Adam and Eve and the Sneeko.
All right.
Whatever, so you know.
I'm going to log out. I will be back on later playing GTA. I will see you guys later on. Probably only a couple hours, but then again, I might grab a nap. So I will definitely see you later. I will announce when I'm streaming on Discord. You have a wonderful afternoon.
So with the internet, you have Muslims mostly